The vanished pharaoh of Akhetaten. Imagine walking through the sun-baked ruins of a once magnificent city, where carved reliefs show a pharaoh worshipping a single sun disk. The desert wind carries whispers of ancient prayers as you step over shattered limestone blocks that once formed towering temples. Your feet trace the same paths where royal processions once moved in splendor, where priests chanted revolutionary hymns to a god that Egypt had never known before. This is Akhetaten, the lost capital of the heretic king Akhenaten, a pharaoh who vanished without a trace, along with his revolutionary dream. You stand among ruins that stretch for miles across the eastern bank of the Nile, in what is now called Tel El Amarna. Here, 3,400 years ago, the most powerful man in the ancient world built a city dedicated to a single deity, the Aten, represented by the solar disk whose rays ended in hands offering life itself. Yet this magnificent capital, constructed with unprecedented speed and ambition, was abandoned just as quickly as it rose. The pharaoh who dared to challenge 3 millennia of religious tradition simply disappeared, leaving behind one of archaeology's most haunting mysteries. The story begins in the 14th century before the Common Era, during Egypt's 18th dynasty, when the kingdom stood at the height of its power and influence. For over 1,500 years, Egypt had worshipped a vast pantheon of gods, with Amun-Ra reigning supreme as king of the deities. The pharaohs ruled as living gods themselves, maintaining cosmic order through elaborate rituals and massive temple complexes that employed thousands of priests. This ancient system had created the wealth and stability that made Egypt the dominant force in the known world. Into this traditional world came Amenhotep IV, a prince whose vision would shake the very foundations of Egyptian civilization. Born around 1370 before the Common Era, he inherited a kingdom that stretched from Nubia to the Euphrates River. Gold flowed from southern mines, tribute arrived from vassal states, and Egyptian art and culture influenced civilizations across the Mediterranean. Yet this young pharaoh looked upon Egypt's religious establishment with growing dissatisfaction. Within the first few years of his reign, Amenhotep IV began promoting the worship of the Aten, a relatively minor solar deity that represented the physical disk of the Sunday. Unlike the anthropomorphic gods of traditional Egyptian religion, the Aten was depicted as an abstract solar disk whose rays terminated in hands that bestowed life and protection. This radical theological shift represented more than religious reform. It challenged the entire power structure of ancient Egypt, threatening the vast wealth and influence of the priesthood of Amun-Ra. By his 5th regnal year, the pharaoh had changed his name from Amenhotep, which meant Amun is satisfied, to Akhenaten, meaning beneficial to the Aten. But his most dramatic act was yet to come. In an unprecedented move, he abandoned Thebes, Egypt's traditional capital and the center of Amun worship, to build an entirely new city, dedicated solely to his chosen god. The discovery of this lost capital reads like an adventure from the golden age of archaeology. In 1843, Prussian expedition leader Karl Richard Lepsius was conducting the first systematic survey of Egyptian monuments when his team stumbled upon extensive ruins in Middle Egypt. Scattered across the desert were the remains of temples, palaces, and residential districts, all decorated with a distinctive artistic style unlike anything seen elsewhere in Egypt. But it was not until the 1880s that the true significance of the site became clear. French archaeologist Urbain Bourrion discovered a series of boundary stelae, massive stone markers carved into the cliffs surrounding the ancient city. These remarkable inscriptions, written in Akhenaten's own words, described his divine inspiration to found a new capital. The pharaoh claimed that the Aten himself had chosen this virgin site, a place untainted by the worship of other gods. The boundary stelae revealed that Akhenaten had named his new capital Akhetaten, meaning horizon of the Aten. According to the inscriptions, the city was built with remarkable speed, rising from empty desert to functioning capital in less than 4 years. The pharaoh moved his entire court, including his famous queen Nefertiti and their 6 daughters, to this revolutionary city where traditional Egyptian religion was forbidden, and only the Aten received worship. Archaeological excavations throughout the 20th century revealed the stunning scope of Akhenaten's vision. The city extended for over 8 miles along the Nile's eastern bank, featuring multiple royal palaces, vast temple complexes open to the sky to allow the Aten's rays to enter, administrative buildings, and residential districts for nobles and workers alike. The Great Temple of the Aten covered an area larger than most Egyptian cities, filled with hundreds of offering tables where daily sacrifices to the sun disk took place. Yet for all its grandeur, Akhetaten existed for barely more than a decade. By Akhenaten's 17th regnal year, around 1336 before the Common Era, both the pharaoh and his capital had vanished from history. The city was systematically abandoned, its temples dismantled, and its population scattered. Even more mysteriously, Akhenaten himself disappeared completely from the historical record, with no definitive tomb, mummy, or clear account of his death ever discovered. But what really happened during those final years in Akhetaten? The theories proposed by historians and archaeologists range from political upheaval to natural disaster, each attempting to explain one of ancient history's most perplexing disappearances. The first theory centers on political and religious revolt. Akhenaten's religious revolution had created powerful enemies throughout Egypt. The priesthood of Amun-Ra had lost enormous wealth and influence, while regional governors and military commanders grew increasingly frustrated with a pharaoh who seemed more interested in theology than governing his empire. Letters discovered in the Amarna archives reveal that Egypt's vassal states in Syria and Palestine were rebelling, with local rulers pleading desperately for military support that never came. Some scholars believe that this mounting pressure culminated in a palace coup that removed Akhenaten from power and forced the abandonment of his heretical capital. A second theory suggests that Akhenaten died naturally, but his religious revolution died with him. His successors, possibly including the young Tutankhamun, would have faced enormous pressure to restore traditional religious practices and return the capital to Thebes. The systematic dismantling of Akhetaten may have been an attempt to erase all traces of the Amarna period and appease the angry gods and priests of the old religion. In this scenario, Akhenaten's body might have been secretly buried in a hidden tomb, its location known only to a few trusted followers who took the secret to their graves. More dramatic theories propose that Akhenaten faced a catastrophic event that forced the sudden abandonment of his capital. Some researchers point to evidence of plague in Egypt during this period, suggesting that disease may have devastated Akhetaten's population and forced the survivors to flee. Others theorize that climate change caused severe flooding or drought that made the city uninhabitable. The Nile's annual flood was crucial to Egyptian civilization, and any disruption to this cycle could have catastrophic consequences. Perhaps the most intriguing theory suggests that Akhenaten did not die at all, but escaped Egypt entirely. Some scholars have proposed that the pharaoh, facing defeat and persecution, fled to the desert with a small group of loyal followers. In this scenario, he might have lived out his days in exile, possibly traveling to distant lands where Egyptian influence could not reach. This would explain why no definitive tomb or mummy has ever been found, despite extensive searches throughout Egypt. A fifth theory, more speculative but supported by some archaeological evidence, proposes that Akhenaten transformed into the mysterious female pharaoh known as Neferneferuaten. Recent DNA analysis and artistic evidence suggest that this ruler, who briefly held power after Akhenaten's disappearance, might have been the heretic king himself, ruling in disguise to preserve his religious revolution. This gender transformation would have been unprecedented in Egyptian history, but desperate times might have called for desperate measures. Modern scientific investigations have brought new tools to bear on the mystery of Akhenaten's disappearance. Ground-penetrating radar surveys of the Amarna site have revealed numerous undiscovered tombs and chambers that might contain crucial evidence about the city's final days. Satellite imagery has identified previously unknown structures and burial sites scattered throughout the desert surrounding Akhetaten. DNA analysis of mummies from the Amarna period has provided tantalizing clues about the royal family's fate. In 2010, genetic testing revealed that a mummy known as the Younger Lady, found in the tomb of Amenhotep II, was likely Tutankhamun's mother and possibly Queen Nefertiti herself. However, attempts to identify Akhenaten's own mummy have proven inconclusive, with several candidates proposed but none definitively confirmed. Chemical analysis of artifacts from Akhetaten has revealed evidence of the city's sudden abandonment. Pottery vessels still contain traces of food and drink, suggesting that the inhabitants left quickly without taking time to empty their homes properly. Jewelry and valuable objects remain scattered throughout the ruins, indicating that the evacuation was not a planned, orderly withdrawal, but rather a hasty flight. Recent excavations have also uncovered evidence of deliberate destruction at certain sites within Akhetaten. Some temples show signs of systematic dismantling, with blocks carefully removed and likely transported elsewhere for reuse. This suggests that at least part of the city's abandonment was organized and purposeful, possibly carried out by Akhenaten's successors as part of their efforts to erase his religious revolution. Modern challenges continue to complicate efforts to solve the mystery of Akhenaten's disappearance. Political instability in Egypt has limited access to key archaeological sites, while funding constraints have reduced the scope of scientific investigations. Climate change poses an additional threat, as rising groundwater levels and increased rainfall threaten to damage delicate artifacts and structures that have survived for millennia. The illegal antiquities trade has also impacted research efforts, with important artifacts from the Amarna period appearing in private collections rather than being available for scientific study. International efforts to combat this trade have had mixed success, and crucial evidence about Akhenaten's fate may remain locked away in private hands. Conservation efforts at Tel El Amarna face enormous challenges due to the site's remote location and the fragile nature of many structures. The ancient mud brick buildings are particularly vulnerable to erosion and require constant maintenance to prevent their complete collapse. Limited resources mean that archaeologists must choose carefully which areas to excavate and which to leave buried for future generations with better preservation techniques. Ethical questions also surround the investigation of Akhenaten's disappearance. Some scholars argue that the systematic destruction of his monuments and the erasure of his name from official records represent a form of ancient cancel culture that should be respected rather than reversed. Others contend that understanding this pivotal period in Egyptian history requires the full restoration of Akhenaten's legacy, regardless of how his contemporaries viewed his religious revolution. Standing again among the ruins of Akhetaten, you cannot help but feel the weight of this ancient mystery. The wind still carries sand across broken stones that once formed the world's most revolutionary capital. Somewhere beneath your feet, or perhaps far beyond the desert horizon, lies the answer to one of archaeology's most enduring questions. Did the heretic pharaoh die defending his beliefs, or did he escape to live his final years in exile? Was his disappearance the result of political upheaval, natural disaster, or something else entirely? The carved reliefs that remain show Akhenaten and his family basking in the life-giving rays of the Aten, their hands raised in worship of the sun disk that promised to transform Egyptian civilization. Yet that same sun now beats down upon empty ruins, a reminder that even the most powerful rulers and their grandest visions are subject to the inexorable passage of time. Perhaps the mystery of Akhenaten's vanishing is not meant to be solved. In a civilization obsessed with preserving the names and deeds of its rulers for eternity, his complete disappearance represents something unprecedented and profound. Whether by choice or by force, The pharaoh who dared to challenge the gods has become one with the desert silence he once sought to fill with revolutionary hymns. What do you believe happened to the vanished pharaoh of Akhetaten? Share your theories in the comments below and subscribe for more ancient mysteries that challenge our understanding of the past. The Screaming Mummy's Final Terror. Imagine unwrapping a 3,000-year-old mummy and discovering a face frozen in eternal agony. The ancient bandages fall away to reveal features contorted in what appears to be a final desperate scream. The mouth gapes wide open, as if the person had been calling out in terror or pain at the moment of death. The eye sockets, though empty, seem to stare upward in horror, while the skin, blackened by millennia, stretches taut across a skull locked in an expression of unspeakable anguish. This is not the peaceful countenance you would expect from ancient Egypt's carefully prepared dead. This is the face of someone who met a violent end, someone whose final moments were filled with such terror that death itself could not erase the memory from their features. You are looking upon Unknown Man E, the so-called Screaming Mummy, whose identity and the circumstances of his horrifying death remain one of archaeology's most haunting mysteries. Found among Egypt's most revered pharaohs in a cache of royal mummies, this mysterious figure tells a story that contradicts everything we know about ancient Egyptian burial practices. While the great kings surrounding him were lovingly preserved for their journey to the afterlife, Unknown Man E was wrapped in sheepskin, a material considered ritually unclean by the ancient Egyptians. He bore no identifying inscriptions, no protective amulets, and none of the elaborate preparations that would ensure a safe passage to the next world. Someone wanted this person not just dead, but condemned to eternal suffering. To understand the significance of this discovery, we must first explore the sacred world of ancient Egyptian death and burial. For over 3 millennia, the civilization along the Nile had perfected the art of mummification, transforming death from an ending into a doorway. The Egyptians believed that preserving the physical body was essential for the soul's survival in the afterlife. Without proper mummification, the deceased would cease to exist entirely, suffering what they considered the ultimate punishment, complete obliteration. The mummification process was both science and sacred ritual. Over 70 days, skilled embalmers would remove the internal organs, dry the body with natron salt, and wrap it in hundreds of yards of linen bandages. Each step followed strict religious protocols, designed to protect the deceased and prepare them for judgment before Osiris, god of the underworld. Protective amulets were placed between the bandages, while prayers and spells from the Book of the Dead ensured safe passage through the dangers of the afterlife. For members of the royal family and nobility, mummification reached extraordinary levels of sophistication. Their bodies were treated with the finest resins and oils, wrapped in the most expensive linens, and placed in elaborate sarcophagi decorated with powerful protective spells. Even their internal organs received individual treatment, being separately mummified and placed in canopic jars guarded by protective deities. Death, for Egypt's elite, was simply the beginning of an eternal existence in paradise. Yet Unknown Man E received none of these protections. His mummification, while technically competent, showed signs of deliberate religious violation. The use of sheepskin as wrapping material was particularly significant, as sheep were associated with the god Seth, the murderer of Osiris, and the embodiment of chaos and evil. By wrapping the body in sheepskin, someone was condemning this person not just to death, but to spiritual pollution that would make resurrection impossible. The discovery of this disturbing mummy reads like a chapter from the golden age of Egyptology. In 1881, a family of local antiquities dealers led French archaeologist Gaston Maspero to a hidden tomb in the cliffs above Deir el-Bahari, near the Valley of the Kings. What they found inside would revolutionize our understanding of ancient Egyptian royal burial practices and create one of archaeology's most enduring mysteries. The tomb, designated as Cache Database 40, contained 40 royal and noble mummies that had been secretly moved from their original burial places during the 21st dynasty. Around 1,000 years before the Common Era, ancient priests, facing increasing tomb robberies, had gathered these sacred remains and hidden them in this remote location to protect them from desecration. Among the mummies were some of the most famous pharaohs in Egyptian history: Ramesses II, Seti I, and Thutmose III, all carefully labeled and wrapped with the reverence due to divine kings. But there, among these revered rulers, lay the mysterious unknown man E. From the moment Maspero's team unwrapped the body in 1886, they knew they had discovered something unprecedented. The mummy's expression of apparent agony was unlike anything seen in Egyptian mortuary practices. Traditional mummification techniques ensured that the deceased appeared peaceful and dignified, ready to meet the gods with confidence and serenity. This face told a different story entirely. Initial examination revealed even more disturbing details. The body belonged to a young man, probably in his 20s, who appeared to have been in good health before his death. His hands were bound, and his feet showed signs of having been restrained as well. Most troubling of all, there were indications that he might have been buried alive, his mouth forced open by what could have been a final, desperate attempt to breathe or cry out for help. But who was this young man, and what crime could have warranted such a horrific fate? The theories proposed by historians and forensic experts paint a picture of ancient intrigue, family betrayal, and political conspiracy that rivals any modern thriller. The most compelling theory suggests that unknown man E was Prince Pentaweret, a son of the great Ramesses III, who was implicated in a palace conspiracy to assassinate his father. The Judicial Papyrus of Turin, an ancient court record dating to around 1155 before the Common Era, describes a plot involving members of the royal harem who sought to place Pentaweret on the throne instead of the designated heir. When the conspiracy was discovered, many of the participants were executed, while others were forced to commit suicide. According to this theory, Pentaweret was condemned to death, but, as a member of the royal family, could not be executed in the normal manner. Instead, he may have been forced to take poison or was suffocated, explaining both his agonized expression and the apparent cause of death. The sheepskin wrapping would represent a final insult, marking him as spiritually polluted and unworthy of proper burial among his ancestors. A second theory proposes that unknown man E was the victim of a ritual execution connected to ancient Egyptian religious practices. Some scholars suggest he may have been a prisoner of war or criminal who was sacrificed during the funeral of a pharaoh, intended to serve the king in the afterlife. The restraints on his hands and feet, combined with the evidence of suffocation, support this interpretation. However, human sacrifice was extremely rare in ancient Egypt, making this theory less likely than political assassination. More mysterious theories suggest that unknown man E was the victim of a curse or supernatural punishment. Ancient Egyptian texts describe various forms of divine justice that could befall those who violated sacred laws or offended the gods. Perhaps this young man committed some unspeakable sacrilege that required not just death, but eternal damnation. The sheepskin wrapping and lack of protective amulets would ensure that his soul could never find peace in the afterlife. A fourth theory focuses on the possibility of accidental burial alive, a fate that would explain the apparent scream frozen on the mummy's face. Some researchers suggest that the young man may have fallen into a coma or deep unconsciousness and was mistakenly declared dead. When he awakened during the mummification process or after being sealed in his wrappings, his final moments would have been filled with the exact terror we see preserved in his features. Recent scientific investigations have brought modern forensic techniques to bear on this ancient mystery, Computer tomography scans of unknown man E have revealed new details about his death and the mummification process used on his body. The scans show that his brain was removed through his nose in the traditional manner, but other aspects of his preparation were unusual. DNA analysis conducted in the 21st century has provided tantalizing clues about the mummy's identity. Genetic testing has confirmed that unknown man E was indeed related to the royal family of the 20th dynasty, supporting the theory that he was Prince Pentaweret. The DNA evidence shows clear familial connections to Ramesses III and other members of the royal lineage, making the case for political assassination even stronger. Chemical analysis of the mummy's tissues has revealed traces of various substances that might indicate poisoning or other unusual circumstances surrounding his death. However, after 3 millennia, distinguishing between substances used in mummification and potential toxins present at the time of death remains extremely challenging. The analysis has detected unusual levels of certain compounds, but their significance remains a matter of scientific debate. Advanced imaging techniques have also revealed previously unseen details about the restraints found on the body. High-resolution scans show that the bindings around his hands and feet were applied before death, not as part of the mummification process. This evidence strongly suggests that unknown man E died as a prisoner, supporting theories of execution or ritual sacrifice. Facial reconstruction technology has allowed researchers to create a more complete picture of what this mysterious young man might have looked like in life. The reconstructions show aristocratic features consistent with royal lineage, further supporting the identification as Prince Pentaweret. However, the permanent expression of agony makes it impossible to know what his normal appearance would have been. Modern challenges continue to complicate efforts to solve the mystery of the screaming mummy. The fragile nature of the 3,000-year-old remains limits the types of analysis that can be performed without risking damage to this unique archaeological specimen. Each new test must be carefully weighed against the potential loss of irreplaceable evidence. Ethical considerations also play a role in research decisions. Some scholars argue that continuing to study and display unknown man E's agonized features represents a form of exploitation, perpetuating whatever punishment was intended by his ancient captors. Others contend that understanding his story is essential to comprehending the political and social dynamics of ancient Egypt during a crucial period in its history. Conservation challenges affect not only unknown man E, but all the mummies from the royal cache. Climate control, pollution, and the simple passage of time threaten these irreplaceable windows into the ancient world. Modern museum techniques help preserve the remains, but they cannot reverse the damage already done by improper storage and handling in earlier decades of archaeological investigation. The political situation in modern Egypt has also impacted research efforts. Restrictions on sampling and testing have limited some types of analysis, while international tensions have complicated collaborative research projects. Important evidence about unknown man E's identity and death may remain locked away until political conditions allow for more comprehensive investigation. Standing before the display case that holds unknown man E, you cannot help but feel the weight of his eternal anguish. 3,000 years have passed since whatever terrible events led to his death, yet his expression of terror remains as vivid as if frozen just moments ago. The ancient Egyptians believed that speaking someone's name would keep them alive in memory, but this man's name was deliberately erased, condemning him to anonymity as well as spiritual death. Perhaps that anonymity is part of his punishment, a final cruel twist that denies him not just peace in the afterlife, but recognition in ours. Or perhaps it protects him, allowing his true identity to remain hidden from whatever forces sought his destruction. The face that stares back at us across the millennia carries secrets that may never be fully revealed, questions that challenge our understanding of ancient justice, family loyalty, and the terrible prices sometimes paid for political ambition. In the end, Unknown Man E serves as a stark reminder that even in a civilization obsessed with ensuring peaceful passage to the afterlife, some fates were considered worse than death itself. His screaming face embodies the ultimate horror for an ancient Egyptian: to be condemned not just to die, but to suffer for eternity, remembered not for achievements or noble deeds, but for whatever terrible crime led to this agonizing end. What do you believe happened to the young man whose scream echoes across 3 millennia? Share your theories about this haunting mystery in the comments below, and subscribe for more ancient puzzles that refuse to give up their secrets. The builder's impossible mathematics. Imagine standing before the Great Pyramid of Giza as the morning sun illuminates its ancient limestone faces, each block precisely cut and positioned with mathematical accuracy that defies comprehension. You place your hand against stone that has weathered 4.5 millennia, feeling the weight of mystery embedded in every measurement. As you walk around the monument's base, counting your steps along sides that stretch more than 750 feet in length, you begin to realize that you are not simply viewing an ancient tomb, but encountering a mathematical riddle that challenges everything we understand about the capabilities of Bronze Age civilization. This is not merely impressive ancient architecture. Hidden within the pyramid's dimensions are mathematical constants that would not be formally discovered by modern science for thousands of years. The ratio of its height to its base perimeter equals pi with startling accuracy. When measured in ancient Egyptian cubits, the pyramid's base perimeter equals the number of days in a year multiplied by specific ratios that correspond to Earth's circumference at the equator. Most remarkably, some researchers claim that the monument's coordinates, when expressed in degrees, mirror the speed of light in meters per second. You are standing before what may be the most sophisticated mathematical achievement in human history, created by a civilization that supposedly had no knowledge of advanced geometry, no understanding of Earth's true dimensions, and no concept of the physical constants that govern our universe. Yet the evidence carved in stone suggests otherwise, raising profound questions about the true extent of ancient Egyptian knowledge and the possibility that our ancestors possessed scientific understanding far beyond what conventional history acknowledges. To comprehend the magnitude of this mystery, we must first understand the world in which the Great Pyramid was conceived and constructed. Around 2,580 years before the Common Era, during Egypt's 4th dynasty, the kingdom stood at the pinnacle of its Old Kingdom period. Pharaoh Khufu, known to the Greeks as Cheops, ruled over a civilization that had already mastered complex engineering, developed sophisticated mathematical systems, and created architectural marvels that demonstrated remarkable understanding of geometry and astronomy. The ancient Egyptians had developed a decimal numbering system and understood basic arithmetic operations, fractions, and geometric principles necessary for surveying land and constructing buildings. Their mathematical papyri reveal knowledge of calculating areas and volumes, solving linear equations, and working with geometric progressions. However, according to conventional understanding, their mathematics remained relatively simple compared to the advanced concepts that would later emerge in Greece and other civilizations. Egyptian astronomy was similarly practical, focused primarily on creating accurate calendars and determining the proper timing for religious festivals and agricultural activities. They recognized the importance of stellar observations for navigation and timekeeping, and their temples often incorporated astronomical alignments. Yet mainstream archaeology maintains that their astronomical knowledge was limited to naked-eye observations and basic pattern recognition, without the theoretical framework that would characterize later scientific traditions. The pyramid itself was built using enormous limestone blocks, some weighing as much as 15 tons, quarried locally and hauled up ramps using copper tools, wooden rollers, and human labor. The precision of the construction is undeniable. The base is leveled to within just over 2 centimeters. The sides are aligned to the cardinal directions with an accuracy of 3/60ths of a degree, and the entire structure rises to an original height of approximately 146 meters, with geometric perfection that modern engineers struggle to match. What makes these achievements so puzzling is not simply their precision, but the specific mathematical relationships encoded within the pyramid's proportions. These relationships suggest either extraordinary coincidence or deliberate incorporation of advanced mathematical knowledge that should not have existed in the third millennium before the Common Era. The mystery of the pyramid's impossible mathematics began to emerge during the systematic surveys conducted by European explorers and archaeologists in the 19th and 20th centuries. In 1880, British archaeologist Sir Flinders Petrie conducted the most accurate measurements of the Great Pyramid up to that time, using precision instruments and meticulous methodology that revealed the monument's true mathematical sophistication. Petrie's measurements showed that the pyramid's base perimeter, divided by its height, yielded a result remarkably close to 2 times pi, the mathematical constant that relates a circle's circumference to its diameter. This ratio appeared to be intentional rather than coincidental, suggesting that the pyramid's builders had incorporated pi into their design more than 2,000 years before the Greek mathematician Archimedes would formally calculate this constant. Subsequent surveys revealed additional mathematical mysteries. The pyramid's base, measured in royal cubits, the standard Egyptian unit of length, seemed to encode Earth's circumference when multiplied by specific ratios. The monument's height, when multiplied by 43,200, approximated the polar radius of Earth. The slope angle of the pyramid's faces corresponded to geometric relationships that would later be recognized as fundamental to trigonometry and advanced mathematics. Perhaps most startling was the discovery that the pyramid's location coordinates, when expressed in modern degrees, matched the numerical value of the speed of light in meters per second. The pyramid sits at latitude 29.979, 2 degrees north, while the speed of light is approximately 299,792,458 meters per second. This correlation seemed impossible unless the ancient builders possessed knowledge of both Earth's precise dimensions and fundamental physical constants. Throughout the 20th century, researchers continued to uncover additional mathematical relationships embedded in the pyramid's design. The monument appeared to encode the golden ratio, the mathematical constant found throughout nature and considered aesthetically perfect by many cultures. Its proportions reflected relationships between Earth and Moon dimensions, suggesting astronomical knowledge that extended far beyond simple observation of celestial movements. But how could ancient Egyptians have possessed such advanced knowledge? The theories proposed to explain these mathematical mysteries range from practical engineering solutions to speculative suggestions about lost civilizations and extraterrestrial intervention. The first and most conventional theory suggests that the mathematical relationships are largely coincidental, arising naturally from practical construction decisions rather than deliberate encoding of advanced constants. Proponents of this view argue that the pyramid's builders chose proportions that were aesthetically pleasing and structurally sound, without necessarily understanding the mathematical implications of their choices. The apparent incorporation of pi, for example, might result from using circular measurement techniques during construction rather than deliberate calculation of the mathematical constant. This theory maintains that ancient Egyptians were skilled practical mathematicians who could achieve remarkable precision through trial and error, accumulated experience, and sophisticated but conventional surveying techniques. The correlation between pyramid dimensions and Earth measurements might reflect the builder's empirical knowledge of distances and proportions gained through extensive travel and trade, rather than theoretical understanding of planetary geometry. A second theory proposes that the ancient Egyptians possessed far more advanced mathematical and astronomical knowledge than conventional history acknowledges. According to this view, Egyptian scholars had developed sophisticated theoretical frameworks for understanding geometry, astronomy, and physics. But this knowledge was lost when their civilization declined. The pyramid represents a monument to this forgotten wisdom, encoding advanced concepts in stone to preserve them for future generations. Supporters of this theory point to the remarkable consistency of mathematical relationships throughout the pyramid, arguing that such precision could not result from coincidence or practical construction alone. They suggest that Egyptian mathematicians had discovered fundamental constants through systematic observation and calculation, developing theoretical understanding that paralleled or exceeded later Greek achievements. The loss of this knowledge might have resulted from political upheaval, natural disasters, or the deliberate suppression of elite scientific traditions. More speculative theories propose that the pyramid's mathematical sophistication reflects contact with advanced civilizations that possessed superior knowledge. Some researchers suggest that survivors of an earlier advanced civilization, possibly the legendary Atlantis, shared their scientific understanding with Egyptian builders. According to this theory, the pyramid serves as a repository of pre-catastrophe knowledge, encoding information about Earth's dimensions and physical constants that was preserved through a dark age of human development. A fourth theory, embraced by some alternative researchers, suggests that the mathematical relationships in the pyramid result from extraterrestrial intervention. Proponents argue that beings from other worlds possessed advanced scientific knowledge and either directly assisted in the pyramid's construction or shared mathematical information with Egyptian builders. The precision of the mathematical encoding, combined with the monument's massive scale and perfect construction, supposedly provides evidence of non-human involvement in its creation. Perhaps the most intriguing theory suggests that the mathematical relationships reflect an ancient global civilization that possessed advanced scientific knowledge before recorded history. According to this view, the pyramid builders were inheritors of a sophisticated tradition that spanned continents and cultures, sharing mathematical and astronomical knowledge through networks that connected civilizations across vast distances. The apparent encoding of Earth's dimensions might reflect this global perspective, suggesting coordination between ancient builders that contradicts our understanding of early human isolation and limited communication. Modern scientific investigations have brought advanced technology to bear on the mystery of the pyramid's mathematics. Laser measurement systems have confirmed the extraordinary precision of the monument's construction, while computer analysis has revealed additional mathematical relationships that earlier surveys missed. Satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar have provided new insights into the pyramid's internal structure and construction techniques. Astronomical software has been used to model the ancient night sky, confirming that the pyramid's alignment corresponds to stellar positions at the time of its construction. This research has revealed sophisticated astronomical knowledge reflected in the monument's orientation, including alignment with specific stars and constellations that held religious significance for ancient Egyptians. However, these alignments can be explained through careful naked-eye observation, rather than requiring advanced theoretical astronomy. Mathematical analysis using modern computational tools has examined thousands of possible relationships between pyramid dimensions and known physical constants. While some correlations are indeed remarkable, skeptics argue that with enough variables and mathematical operations, significant relationships can be found in any large dataset. The challenge lies in determining which relationships reflect deliberate design rather than statistical coincidence. Archaeological investigations of pyramid construction techniques have revealed sophisticated but conventional methods for achieving precise measurements and alignments. Evidence of ramps, copper tools, and systematic quarrying operations suggests that Egyptian builders could accomplish remarkable feats using known technologies and techniques, albeit with extraordinary skill and organization. Recent discoveries of additional pyramids and related structures have provided new context for understanding Egyptian mathematical capabilities. The consistency of certain proportional relationships across multiple monuments suggests deliberate application of mathematical principles rather than coincidental achievement of sophisticated ratios. Modern challenges continue to complicate efforts to understand the true extent of ancient Egyptian mathematical knowledge. Tourism and environmental factors threaten the pyramid's structural integrity, limiting access for detailed scientific investigation. Political instability in the region has restricted some research activities, while international tensions have complicated collaborative studies between different research teams. The debate over the pyramid's mathematical significance also reflects broader disagreements about the capabilities of ancient civilizations. Some researchers advocate for recognizing greater sophistication in prehistoric cultures, while others maintain that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. The mathematical relationships in the Great Pyramid continue to fuel this debate, serving as either evidence of forgotten wisdom or examples of pattern-seeking behavior in modern analysis. Conservation efforts face the challenge of preserving the monument while allowing continued research into its construction and mathematical properties. Each measurement and investigation must be balanced against potential damage to irreplaceable archaeological evidence. Climate change poses additional threats, as rising temperatures and changing precipitation patterns affect the limestone structure and surrounding environment. Ethical considerations surround the interpretation and presentation of pyramid mathematics. Some researchers worry that sensationalized claims about ancient knowledge undermine serious archaeological investigation, while others argue that conventional interpretations artificially limit our understanding of human capabilities. The pyramid's mathematical mysteries continue to challenge the boundaries between mainstream archaeology and alternative research. Standing once again before the Great Pyramid, you cannot escape the profound questions raised by its mathematical precision. Whether the result of extraordinary coincidence, forgotten wisdom, or deliberate encoding of advanced knowledge, the monument represents an achievement that continues to challenge our understanding of ancient capabilities. The massive stones around you have preserved not only a pharaoh's tomb, but a mathematical puzzle that may never be completely solved. Perhaps the pyramid's greatest mystery lies not in the specific constants encoded within its dimensions, but in what those relationships reveal about the human drive to understand and encode universal truths. Whether ancient or modern, civilizations have consistently sought to capture fundamental principles in their greatest monuments, creating works that speak across millennia about shared human fascination with mathematics, astronomy, and the hidden patterns that govern our universe. The Great Pyramid stands as testimony to this eternal quest, its precise proportions continuing to inspire wonder and debate 45 centuries after its completion. In an age when we believe we have measured the cosmos and understood the fundamental forces of nature, this ancient monument reminds us that mysteries remain hidden in plain sight, waiting for new perspectives to unlock their secrets. What do you believe about the mathematical mysteries encoded in the Great Pyramid? Do they represent forgotten ancient wisdom, remarkable coincidence, or something else entirely? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to explore more ancient puzzles that challenge our understanding of human achievement. The curse that kills. Imagine breaking the seal on a tomb that has remained untouched for over 3,000 years. Your trembling hands holding a flickering candle as you peer into the darkness beyond. The air that rushes out carries the scent of ancient resins and the weight of millennia. while golden objects gleam in the candlelight like stars scattered across the floor of eternity. You have just opened the burial chamber of Tutankhamun, the boy pharaoh whose name was nearly erased from history, and you believe you have made the archaeological discovery of a lifetime. But as the months pass, you begin to notice a disturbing pattern. Members of your expedition team are falling ill with mysterious ailments. Some die in bizarre accidents that seem to defy explanation, while others succumb to sudden illnesses that baffle the finest medical minds of the era. One by one, the people who witnessed the tomb's opening or handled its treasures begin to meet untimely ends, their deaths shrouded in circumstances so unusual that newspaper reporters begin to whisper about an ancient curse awakened from its slumber. This is not the realm of superstition or sensational fiction. This is the documented reality of the Tutankhamun expedition, where within a decade of the tomb's discovery, nearly 24 people connected to the excavation had died under circumstances that continue to perplex researchers nearly a century later. You are confronting one of archaeology's most enduring mysteries, a pattern of deaths so statistically improbable that even the most rational scientists struggle to dismiss it as mere coincidence. To understand the significance of these mysterious deaths, we must first journey back to the golden age of Egyptian archaeology, when European explorers and wealthy adventurers competed to uncover the secrets of the pharaohs. The early 20th century marked the twilight of the great age of discovery in Egypt's Valley of the Kings, where most of the royal tombs had already been found and plundered by ancient grave robbers or modern archaeologists. Tutankhamun himself was a relatively minor pharaoh who ruled Egypt for only about 10 years during the 14th century before the Common Era. He ascended to the throne as a child, possibly around the age of 9, and died unexpectedly before reaching his 20th birthday. His brief reign occurred during one of the most turbulent periods in Egyptian history, following the religious revolution of the heretic pharaoh Akhenaten and the abandonment of the revolutionary capital at Amarna. What made Tutankhamun archaeologically significant was not his achievements in life, but the circumstances of his death and burial. Unlike the great pharaohs, whose tombs were systematically robbed over the centuries, the boy king's burial remained largely intact, hidden beneath debris and forgotten by grave robbers, who focused their attention on more famous rulers. His tomb represented a unique opportunity to examine an undisturbed royal burial, complete with all the treasures and ritual objects intended to accompany the pharaoh on his journey to the afterlife. The ancient Egyptians took their curses seriously, inscribing warnings on tomb walls and burial objects to protect the deceased from disturbance. These curses typically called upon various gods to punish anyone who violated the tomb, promising everything from disease and misfortune to spiritual destruction in the afterlife. While many such inscriptions were formulaic rather than specific threats, they reflected a genuine belief that the dead possessed power to affect the living, especially those who disturbed their eternal rest. Egyptian magical practices included elaborate rituals for binding harmful spirits and protecting sacred spaces from intrusion. Priests and magicians understood the careful balance between the world of the living and the realm of the dead, recognizing that certain boundaries should not be crossed without proper preparation and protection. Tomb robbing was not just theft, but sacrilege, an act that could unleash supernatural consequences upon the perpetrators and their communities. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb reads like a tale from the golden age of adventure, filled with international intrigue, bitter rivalries, and the promise of unimaginable treasures. Howard Carter, a British archaeologist with decades of experience in Egypt, had spent years searching for the lost tomb of the boy pharaoh. Working under the patronage of Lord Carnarvon, a wealthy English aristocrat with a passion for Egyptology, Carter had systematically excavated areas of the Valley of the Kings that other archaeologists had overlooked or dismissed. On November 4, 1922, Carter's workmen uncovered a stone step cut into the bedrock near the tomb of Ramesses VI. Further excavation revealed a sealed doorway bearing the cartouche of Tutankhamun, confirming that they had found the entrance to the boy pharaoh's burial place. The discovery sent shockwaves through the archaeological world and captured the imagination of newspaper readers across the globe. When Carter and Lord Carnarvon first entered the tomb's antechamber on November 26, 1922, they encountered a sight that no archaeologist had ever witnessed. A royal burial chamber that remained virtually untouched since the day it was sealed. Golden furniture, carved statues, jewelry, weapons, and ceremonial objects filled the chamber in carefully arranged profusion, while hieroglyphic inscriptions covered the walls with prayers and magical formulae intended to protect the pharaoh's spirit. The tomb's discovery attracted international attention and brought dozens of visitors, researchers, and workers into contact with Tutankhamun's burial goods and mummified remains. Photographs from the excavation show crowds of people handling ancient artifacts, breathing the air of sealed chambers, and working in close proximity to the mummy and its elaborate wrappings. Unknown to these pioneers of archaeology, they may have been exposing themselves to dangers that had nothing to do with supernatural curses. But within months of the tomb's opening, the deaths began. Lord Carnarvon, the expedition's financial backer and one of the first people to enter the burial chamber, fell ill in Cairo during April of 1923. He had suffered a mosquito bite that became infected, leading to blood poisoning and pneumonia that proved fatal despite the attention of the finest doctors available. News reports claimed that at the moment of his death, all the lights in Cairo mysteriously went out, while his beloved dog howled and died simultaneously at his estate in England. Arthur Mace, an American archaeologist who helped Carter clear the tomb's entrance, died in April of 1928 from a mysterious illness that began with exhaustion and progressed to complete physical collapse. George J. Gould, an American millionaire who visited the tomb shortly after its opening, died of pneumonia in 1923 after developing a fever immediately following his visit. Captain Richard Bethel, Carter's personal secretary and a frequent visitor to the tomb, died suddenly in his London club in 1929, under circumstances that were never fully explained. The list continued to grow with each passing year. Hugh Evelyn White, an archaeologist who worked on the tomb, committed suicide in 1924, leaving a note that mentioned fears of an ancient curse. Ali Kamel Fahmy Bey, an Egyptian prince who visited the tomb, was murdered by his wife in London in 1923. Aubrey Herbert, Lord Carnarvon's half-brother who inherited his estate, died suddenly in 1923 from complications following routine dental surgery. But were these deaths truly the result of an ancient curse? Or could there be more rational explanations for the apparent pattern of misfortune? The theories proposed to explain the Tutankhamun deaths range from medical and environmental factors to psychological influences and statistical coincidence. The most scientifically plausible theory focuses on the health hazards present in ancient tombs that had been sealed for millennia. Modern research has revealed that such environments can harbor dangerous pathogens, including bacteria, fungi, and viruses, that remain viable for centuries in the dry conditions of Egyptian burial chambers. When these sealed spaces are opened, the sudden exposure to fresh air and human activity can release clouds of potentially harmful microorganisms. Specific pathogens identified in ancient Egyptian tombs include Aspergillus niger and Aspergillus flavus, species of fungi that can cause serious respiratory infections in humans. These organisms thrive in the organic materials commonly found in tombs, such as wood, leather, and mummified remains treated with various resins and oils. People with compromised immune systems or pre-existing health conditions would be particularly vulnerable to infection from such sources. The tomb environment itself presented additional health risks that early 20th century archaeologists did not fully understand. Dust particles containing fragments of ancient organic matter, mineral deposits from deteriorating stone, and residues from mummification chemicals could cause respiratory problems when inhaled over extended periods. The close quarters and poor ventilation in tomb chambers would have concentrated these hazards, while the excitement and physical demands of excavation work might have weakened the immune systems of those involved. A second theory suggests that psychological factors played a significant role in the pattern of deaths. The intense media attention surrounding the curse story created a climate of fear and expectation that may have influenced both the behavior and health of expedition members. People who believed they were cursed might have experienced stress-related health problems or engaged in riskier behavior that increased their chances of accidents or illness. This psychological explanation gains support from documented cases of people who became convinced they were cursed and subsequently developed real physical symptoms or died from stress-related conditions. The power of suggestion and the influence of cultural beliefs on physical health are well-established phenomena in medical literature, suggesting that fear of the curse might have become a self-fulfilling prophecy for some individuals. A third theory proposes that the deaths were largely coincidental, reflecting the normal mortality rate among a group of people engaged in physically demanding work in a challenging environment. Early 20th century medicine was far less advanced than today, and many conditions that are now easily treatable were often fatal. The expedition members were also predominantly older, wealthy individuals who may have had underlying health conditions that made them more vulnerable to illness and injury. Statistical analysis of the death rate among people connected to the Tutankhamun discovery suggests that while the number of deaths was higher than average, it was not beyond the range of normal variation when factors such as age, lifestyle, and environmental conditions are considered. The apparent clustering of deaths may be an example of the human tendency to perceive patterns in random events, especially when those events are emotionally significant or widely publicized. More exotic theories suggest that the ancient Egyptians deliberately incorporated deadly materials into their tomb decorations and burial goods. Some researchers have proposed that certain pigments, metals, or chemical compounds used in the mummification process might have been toxic to people who handled them extensively. Others have speculated that the Egyptians might have used radioactive materials or biological agents as deliberate protection for their tomb. However, scientific analysis of materials from Tutankhamun's tomb has not revealed evidence of deliberately incorporated toxins or radiation sources that could account for the pattern of deaths. While some ancient Egyptian materials do contain compounds that are now known to be harmful, the concentrations and exposure levels would not typically be sufficient to cause the rapid onset of serious illness observed in several cases. Modern scientific investigations have applied advanced techniques to understand both the tomb environment and the health risks it might have posed to excavators. Microbiological sampling of ancient Egyptian tombs has confirmed the presence of various potentially harmful organisms, while air quality studies have documented the types and concentrations of particles released when sealed chambers are opened. DNA analysis of tissue samples from people who died after exposure to ancient tombs has been attempted in some cases, though the degraded condition of older remains makes such studies challenging. Where possible, researchers have looked for evidence of specific infections or toxic exposures that might explain sudden illness or death following tomb work. Medical records from the period have been re-examined using modern diagnostic knowledge to determine whether the reported symptoms and causes of death are consistent with environmental health hazards, infectious diseases, or other explainable factors. This research has revealed that many of the deaths showed symptoms consistent with respiratory infections, blood poisoning, or other conditions that could result from exposure to contaminated environments. Archaeological techniques have also evolved to minimize health risks during excavation work. Modern tomb investigation includes environmental monitoring, protective equipment for workers, and systematic sampling of air and surfaces for potential biological hazards. These precautions reflect our improved understanding of the real dangers present in ancient sealed environments. Computer modeling has been used to analyze the statistical significance of the death pattern among Tutankhamun expedition members. While these studies have produced varying results depending on the parameters used, they generally suggest that the number of deaths, while notable, falls within the range of what might be expected, given the demographic characteristics and lifestyle factors of the people involved. Modern challenges in investigating the Tutankhamun curse include the difficulty of obtaining reliable historical data about the health and circumstances of people who lived nearly a century ago. Medical records from the 1920s and 30s are often incomplete or have been lost, while cultural attitudes toward discussing illness and death may have influenced the accuracy of contemporary accounts. The commercialization of the curse story has also complicated serious research into the phenomenon. Sensational media coverage and popular entertainment have created a mythology around the deaths that often bears little resemblance to the documented facts, making it difficult to separate genuine mysteries from manufactured drama. Conservation concerns affect ongoing research into both the tomb environment and its potential health hazards. Efforts to preserve Tutankhamun's burial goods and tomb decorations must be balanced against the need to understand the conditions that may have contributed to the deaths of early excavators. Modern conservation techniques aim to maintain stable environmental conditions that minimize both deterioration of artifacts and health risks to researchers. Ethical considerations surround the investigation of deaths that affected real people and their families. While scientific inquiry into the curse phenomenon is legitimate, researchers must be sensitive to the fact that their studies involve the suffering and loss experienced by individuals who dedicated their lives to archaeological discovery. The international nature of the expedition team, with members from Britain, America, and Egypt, has created challenges in tracking long-term health outcomes and gathering comprehensive data about all individuals who may have been exposed to tomb environments during the excavation period. Standing in the shadow of the Valley of the Kings, where Tutankhamun's tomb lies hidden beneath protective structures and modern security systems, you cannot help but reflect on the price of discovery. The golden treasures that dazzled the world in 1922 continue to inspire wonder and scholarship, yet they remain forever linked to the mysterious deaths that followed their revelation to the modern world. Perhaps the true curse of Tutankhamun lies not in supernatural vengeance, but in the reminder that every act of discovery carries risks and consequences that we may not fully understand until it is too late. The explorers who opened his tomb were pioneers who lacked the knowledge and protective equipment that modern archaeologists take for granted. Yet their courage and dedication revealed one of history's greatest archaeological treasures. Whether the deaths that followed were the result of ancient pathogens, environmental hazards, psychological stress, or simply tragic coincidence, they serve as a sobering reminder of the complex relationship between past and present. The boy pharaoh, who ruled for barely a decade, has achieved an immortality that none of his more powerful predecessors could claim. His name forever associated with both incredible discovery and inexplicable mystery. In the end, the curse of Tutankhamun may be less about supernatural retribution than about the eternal human struggle to balance curiosity with caution, knowledge with respect, and the desire to uncover the past with the wisdom to acknowledge what we still do not understand. What do you believe explains the mysterious deaths that followed the opening of Tutankhamun's tomb? Share your thoughts on this enduring mystery in the comments below, and subscribe for more investigations into the unexplained phenomena that continue to challenge our understanding of the ancient world. The woman who erased herself. Imagine standing before a massive temple wall, where ancient artisans once carved the image of a powerful pharaoh in ceremonial regalia. holding the symbols of divine authority over the greatest empire on earth. But as you trace your fingers across the weathered limestone, you discover something disturbing. Where a royal face should smile in eternal confidence, there is only a rough-hewn void. The cartouche that should proclaim the pharaoh's name to the gods and to eternity has been systematically chiseled away, leaving behind scars in the stone that speak of deliberate, methodical destruction. The rediscovery of Hatshepsut's existence reads like a detective story from the golden age of Egyptology. Throughout the 19th century, archaeologists working in Egypt's temples and tombs encountered puzzling gaps in the historical record. Inscriptions and king lists seem to skip directly from Thutmose II to Thutmose III, with no mention of the intervening period during which Egypt had clearly continued to prosper and build magnificent monuments. The breakthrough came in 1828, when Jean-François Champollion, the brilliant French linguist who had deciphered Egyptian hieroglyphs, encountered cartouches bearing an unusual royal name at various sites throughout Egypt and Nubia. The name read Ma'at-Kare Hatshepsut, but the systematic damage to these inscriptions made it difficult to understand the context or significance of this mysterious ruler. You are witnessing one of history's most thorough character assassinations, an attempt to erase someone so completely from existence that their very soul would be denied eternal life in the Egyptian afterworld. This is not the random vandalism of tomb robbers or the casual destruction of conquering armies. This is something far more sinister: the systematic obliteration of Hatshepsut, a woman who ruled Egypt as pharaoh for over 2 decades, yet whose existence was so thoroughly erased that modern archaeologists only rediscovered her story in the 20th century. What makes this erasure even more mysterious is recent evidence suggesting that the destruction was not carried out by her immediate successor, as scholars long believed, but by someone else entirely, someone with different motives, different methods, and an identity that remains completely unknown. You are confronting a mystery that challenges our understanding of ancient Egyptian politics, family dynamics, and the very nature of historical memory itself. To comprehend the magnitude of this historical erasure, we must first understand the extraordinary world in which Hatshepsut lived and ruled. The 15th century before the Common Era marked the height of Egypt's New Kingdom period, when pharaohs commanded vast territories stretching from Nubia in the south to the Euphrates River in the north. This was an age of unprecedented prosperity, magnificent architecture, and complex international diplomacy that positioned Egypt as the dominant power in the ancient world. Egyptian society was rigidly hierarchical, with the pharaoh serving as both supreme political leader and living god on earth. The position carried enormous power and responsibility, including the maintenance of Ma'at, the cosmic order that kept chaos at bay and ensured the continuation of civilization itself. Pharaohs were expected to be warriors, builders, priests, and intermediaries between the human and divine realms, wielding authority that was considered both absolute and sacred. Within this highly structured system, the role of royal women was carefully defined and generally limited to supporting male rulers rather than wielding power directly. Queens could serve as regents for young pharaohs, priestesses in temple hierarchies, and diplomatic marriage partners with foreign kingdoms. But the precedent for a woman ruling as pharaoh in her own right was extremely rare and controversial. Hatshepsut emerged from this traditional background as one of the most remarkable figures in ancient history. Born around 1500, 7 years before the Common Era, she was the daughter of Thutmose I and the principal wife of her half-brother Thutmose II, following the Egyptian royal custom of marrying within the family to preserve the purity of the divine bloodline. When Thutmose II died after a relatively brief reign, he left behind only a young son, Thutmose III, born to a minor wife rather than Hatshepsut. Initially, Hatshepsut served as regent for the child pharaoh, a role that was traditional and accepted within Egyptian political structure. But around the seventh year of Thutmose III's reign, something unprecedented occurred. Hatshepsut assumed the full titles and regalia of pharaoh, becoming not just a regent but a ruling monarch in her own right. She adopted the traditional pharaonic titulature, wore the false beard of divine kingship, and presented herself in official art and sculpture as a male ruler, complete with the muscular physique and ceremonial dress associated with Egyptian pharaohs. Her reign, which lasted approximately 22 years, was marked by peace, prosperity, and remarkable architectural achievements. Rather than focusing on military conquests like many of her predecessors and successors, Hatshepsut concentrated on building projects, trade expeditions, and internal development that brought unprecedented wealth to Egypt. Her masterpiece, the magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, represented a revolutionary approach to sacred architecture that influenced Egyptian building design for centuries. The rediscovery of Hatshepsut's existence reads like a detective story from the golden age of Egyptology. Throughout the 19th century, archaeologists working in Egypt's temples and tombs encountered puzzling gaps in the historical record. Inscriptions and king lists seemed to skip directly from Thutmose II to Thutmose III, with no mention of the intervening period during which Egypt had clearly continued to prosper and build magnificent monuments. The breakthrough came in 1828, when Jean-François Champollion, the brilliant French linguist who had deciphered Egyptian hieroglyphs, encountered cartouches bearing an unusual royal name at various sites throughout Egypt and Nubia. The name read Ma'atkare Hatshepsut, but the systematic damage to these inscriptions made it difficult to understand the context or significance of this mysterious ruler. Throughout the latter half of the 19th century, archaeologists began to piece together evidence of a forgotten pharaoh whose monuments and records had been deliberately destroyed. At temple after temple, researchers found the same pattern: carefully chiseled cartouches, defaced reliefs, and systematic removal of inscriptions that had once proclaimed the achievements of someone whose name had been methodically erased from Egyptian history. The most dramatic discoveries came during the excavation of Hatshepsut's mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, conducted by the Metropolitan Museum of Art between 1911 and 1931. The temple, built into the cliffs of the west bank of the Nile, had been deliberately dismantled in ancient times, its reliefs smashed and its statues broken into thousands of fragments. Yet the painstaking work of reconstruction revealed the true scope of Hatshepsut's achievements and the systematic nature of the campaign to erase her memory. As archaeologists reassembled the shattered pieces of her monuments, they discovered that virtually every image of Hatshepsut had been attacked with chisels and hammers. Her face had been hacked away from relief carvings. Her cartouches had been carved out and replaced with those of other pharaohs, and her statues had been smashed and buried in pits near her temple. The destruction was thorough, methodical, and clearly intended to eliminate every trace of her existence from the historical record. But who orchestrated this comprehensive erasure? And why did they want Hatshepsut forgotten? The theories proposed by historians and archaeologists reveal a complex web of political intrigue, religious controversy, and personal vendettas that may have motivated this unprecedented act of historical vandalism. The traditional theory, accepted by most scholars for over a century, attributed the destruction to Thutmose III, Hatshepsut's stepson and the rightful heir to the throne. According to this interpretation, Thutmose harbored resentment against Hatshepsut for usurping power that rightfully belonged to him and spent years planning his revenge. Once he gained full control of Egypt, he systematically destroyed her monuments and records to restore the legitimate succession and erase the memory of her irregular reign. This theory gained support from the apparent timing of the destruction, which seemed to occur during the later years of Thutmose III's reign, when he had consolidated power and no longer needed to maintain political alliances that might have protected Hatshepsut's memory. The thoroughness of the erasure also suggested royal authority and resources, as such a comprehensive campaign would have required significant manpower and coordination across Egypt's vast territory. However, recent archaeological and chronological evidence has begun to challenge this long-accepted explanation. Detailed analysis of the destruction patterns suggests that the defacement occurred decades after Thutmose III's death, during the reign of Amenhotep II or even later. This timing makes it impossible for Thutmose III to have personally ordered the destruction, raising fundamental questions about both the perpetrator and the motive. A second theory proposes that the erasure was carried out by later pharaohs who were concerned about the precedent Hatshepsut had set for female rule. According to this interpretation, subsequent rulers feared that her example might encourage other royal women to claim pharaonic authority, potentially destabilizing the traditional male succession. By erasing her from history, they sought to eliminate any memory of successful female pharaonic rule and restore the conventional understanding of kingship as exclusively male. This theory gains credibility from the broader pattern of Egyptian historical memory, where controversial or problematic rulers were often subjected to damnatio memoriae, the systematic destruction of their records and monuments. The Egyptians believed that erasing someone's name and image could literally destroy their soul in the afterlife, making this practice the ultimate punishment for those who had violated divine or political order. More intriguing theories suggest that the destruction was motivated by religious rather than political concerns. Hatshepsut's reign coincided with significant changes in Egyptian religious practices and temple administration. Some scholars propose that her emphasis on building and renovation projects may have disrupted established priestly hierarchies or challenged traditional religious authority in ways that created lasting resentment among powerful temple establishments. A fourth theory focuses on the possibility that Hatshepsut's erasure was connected to broader political upheavals during the later New Kingdom period. Egypt faced increasing pressure from foreign enemies, internal political instability, and economic challenges that may have led to scapegoating of past rulers deemed responsible for contemporary problems. Hatshepsut's peaceful reign and focus on internal development rather than military expansion might have been blamed for Egypt's later military difficulties. Perhaps the most speculative theory suggests that the destruction was carried out by members of Hatshepsut's own family or political faction, possibly as part of an internal power struggle or succession dispute. According to this interpretation, the systematic nature of the erasure reflected intimate knowledge of her monuments and achievements that could only have come from people who had been close to her during her lifetime. Modern scientific investigations have brought sophisticated analytical techniques to bear on the mystery of Hatshepsut's erasure. Digital imaging and computer analysis have revealed previously hidden details about the destruction patterns, while chemical analysis of tool marks has provided insights into the methods and timing of the defacement. Three-dimensional scanning of damaged reliefs has allowed researchers to create virtual reconstructions of Hatshepsut's original monuments, revealing the full scope of her building programs and artistic achievements. These reconstructions show that her artistic legacy was even more extensive than previously realized, making the thoroughness of the destruction even more remarkable. Microscopic analysis of chisel marks and tool damage has revealed that the destruction was carried out using specific types of tools and techniques that can be dated to particular periods in Egyptian history. This evidence has helped establish a more precise chronology for the erasure campaign and has supported theories that place the destruction later than previously believed. Archaeological investigations at multiple sites have revealed that the pattern of destruction was not uniform across all of Hatshepsut's monuments. Some inscriptions and images were left untouched, while others were completely obliterated, suggesting that the perpetrators had specific criteria for what needed to be destroyed. Understanding these patterns may provide crucial clues about the identity and motivations of those responsible. DNA analysis of royal mummies has provided new insights into the family relationships and succession patterns that may have influenced the decision to erase Hatshepsut's memory. Recent identification of Hatshepsut's mummy has allowed researchers to study her physical characteristics and health, providing additional context for understanding her reign and its aftermath. Modern challenges continue to complicate efforts to solve the mystery of Hatshepsut's erasure. Political instability in Egypt has limited access to key archaeological sites, while conservation concerns restrict the types of analysis that can be performed on fragile ancient monuments. Climate change poses additional threats to the limestone reliefs and structures that contain crucial evidence about the destruction campaign. The illegal antiquities trade has also affected research efforts, as fragments of Hatshepsut's monuments continue to appear in private collections rather than being available for scientific study. International efforts to combat this trade have had mixed success, and important pieces of the puzzle may remain in private hands indefinitely. Ethical considerations surround the investigation of Hatshepsut's erasure, particularly regarding the appropriate response to ancient attempts at historical suppression. Some scholars argue that continuing to study and publicize her achievements represents a form of historical justice, while others worry that modern attention to her story may perpetuate ancient controversies that are no longer relevant. Conservation efforts face enormous challenges in preserving what remains of Hatshepsut's monuments, while allowing continued research into the circumstances of their destruction. The fragile nature of damaged stone surfaces requires careful handling, while exposure to weather and pollution continues to threaten the survival of crucial evidence. Standing among the reconstructed colonnades of Hatshepsut's temple at Deir el-Bahari, you cannot help but reflect on the irony of her attempted erasure. The woman who someone tried so desperately to forget has become one of ancient Egypt's most famous and celebrated rulers. Her story inspiring countless books, documentaries, and scholarly investigations. The systematic destruction that was meant to consign her to oblivion has instead created a mystery that ensures her memory will endure far longer than many pharaohs whose monuments remain intact. Perhaps the greatest puzzle is not who ordered her erasure, but why they believed it was necessary. Hatshepsut's reign represented a remarkable period of peace and prosperity that brought Egypt unprecedented wealth and architectural achievement. Her decision to rule as pharaoh, while unconventional, appears to have been successful by every measurable standard. What threat did her memory pose that required such extreme measures to eliminate? The answer may lie not in what Hatshepsut did, but in what she represented. The possibility that traditional power structures could be challenged and transformed. In a civilization built on the principle of unchanging divine order, the precedent of successful female pharaonic rule may have seemed dangerous enough to justify the ultimate punishment of historical oblivion. Yet history has proven the futility of such attempts at erasure. The woman, who someone worked so hard to forget, has achieved a form of immortality that her destroyers never intended. Her broken statues and defaced monuments, bearing witness to both her remarkable achievements and the lengths to which her enemies went to silence her voice across the centuries. What do you believe motivated the systematic erasure of Hatshepsut from Egyptian history? Share your theories about this ancient mystery in the comments below, and subscribe for more investigations into the hidden stories that challenge our understanding of the past. The Sphinx's hidden chambers. Imagine standing in the shadow of the Great Sphinx as electromagnetic waves pulse silently through its ancient limestone body, revealing secrets that have remained hidden for over 4,000 years. The massive monument rises before you, its weathered face gazing eternally toward the rising sun, while beneath your feet, sophisticated ground-penetrating radar equipment displays readings that challenge everything archaeologists thought they knew about this enigmatic guardian of Giza. The data streaming across computer screens shows something extraordinary. The Sphinx appears to be hollow, Rectangular voids pulse like digital heartbeats beneath its massive paws, while geometric anomalies within the monument's body suggest chambers and tunnels that have never been explored by modern archaeology. You are witnessing the detection of spaces that were deliberately sealed thousands of years ago. Chambers whose contents remain as mysterious today as they were when ancient builders first concealed them from human eyes. Yet despite these tantalizing discoveries, you cannot simply drill through the limestone to see what lies within. Egyptian authorities have consistently refused permission for invasive excavation, leaving these hidden chambers as one of archaeology's most frustrating mysteries. The Sphinx keeps its secrets locked away, protected by both ancient design and modern bureaucracy, challenging researchers to imagine what treasures, records, or revelations might lie just beyond the reach of contemporary science. To understand the significance of these hidden chambers, we must first explore the extraordinary civilization that created the Sphinx and the profound mysteries that have surrounded this monument since antiquity. The Great Sphinx stands as one of the most recognizable symbols of ancient Egypt, yet it remains among the most enigmatic structures ever carved by human hands. Rising from the Giza Plateau like a limestone dream made manifest, it combines the body of a lion with the head of a pharaoh, embodying the fusion of royal power and divine strength that characterized Egyptian kingship. Traditional Egyptology attributes the Sphinx's creation to the 4th dynasty pharaoh Khafre, around 2,500 years before the Common Era, making it contemporary with the nearby pyramids that dominate the Giza complex. According to this interpretation, the monument was carved from a single massive outcrop of limestone, its body shaped by thousands of workers who labored under the desert sun to create a guardian figure that would protect the royal necropolis for eternity. The ancient Egyptians themselves regarded the Sphinx with a mixture of reverence and mystery that suggests its origins were already obscure by their time. They called it Hor-em-Akhet, meaning Horus of the horizon, associating it with the sun god's daily journey across the sky. Later traditions linked it to the god Harmachis and established it as a focus of pilgrimage and worship that continued well into the Roman period, indicating that its religious significance transcended its original funerary purpose. The monument's design reflects sophisticated understanding of both engineering and symbolism. The lion's body, carved from the bedrock itself, measures approximately 73 meters in length and 20 meters in height, while the human head rises nearly 14 meters above the surrounding plateau. The precise carving of facial features, despite millennia of weathering, suggests extraordinary skill on the part of ancient sculptors who worked with copper tools and stone hammers to shape this massive form. Egyptian texts from various periods reference the Sphinx in contexts that suggest it held special significance beyond its role as a royal monument. The famous Dream Stela, erected between the monument's front paws by Thutmose IV around 1400 years before the Common Era, describes the prince's vision in which the Sphinx promised him the throne of Egypt in exchange for clearing away the sand that had accumulated around its body. This inscription provides evidence that the monument was already ancient and partially buried by the New Kingdom period, suggesting its origins might reach even further into the past than conventional dating indicates. The mystery of hidden chambers within the Sphinx began to emerge during the modern era of archaeological investigation, when increasingly sophisticated technology allowed researchers to peer beneath the surface of ancient monuments without causing damage. The first hints came during routine conservation work in the 1970s and 80s, when structural engineers noticed unusual acoustic properties in certain areas of the monument that suggested the presence of hollow spaces. The breakthrough discoveries came during the 1990s, when Japanese researchers from Waseda University conducted comprehensive, non-invasive surveys of the Giza complex using seismic equipment and ground-penetrating radar. Led by Dr. Sakuji Yoshimura, The team detected what appeared to be a rectangular chamber beneath the Sphinx's front paws, along with additional anomalies that suggested a more complex internal structure than anyone had previously imagined. The Japanese findings were independently confirmed by American researcher Thomas Dobecki, who used seismic refraction techniques to map subsurface features around the Sphinx. His data revealed not only the chamber beneath the paws, but also indicated the presence of what appeared to be a tunnel system extending from the monument toward the nearby pyramids. These discoveries suggested that the Sphinx might be part of a larger underground complex that connected various elements of the Giza necropolis. Further investigations using electromagnetic surveys and electrical resistivity measurements revealed additional anomalies within the Sphinx's body itself. The data indicated areas of lower density that could represent chambers, passages, or simply natural voids in the limestone. However, the resolution of these early surveys was insufficient to determine the exact nature, size, or contents of the detected spaces. More recent investigations using advanced ground-penetrating radar and seismic tomography have provided increasingly detailed images of the Sphinx's internal structure. These studies have confirmed the presence of multiple voids and have suggested that some of the spaces are geometric in shape, implying deliberate construction rather than natural formation. The largest detected chamber appears to be located beneath the monument's front section, while smaller anomalies are distributed throughout the body. But what purpose could these hidden chambers have served? And why were they sealed so carefully that they have remained undetected for millennia? The theories proposed by researchers, historians, and alternative archaeology enthusiasts paint a fascinating picture of possible functions ranging from practical storage to mystical significance. The most conventional theory suggests that the detected chambers represent storage spaces used during the Sphinx's construction or later renovation projects. According to this interpretation, ancient builders may have carved temporary chambers within the monument to store tools, supplies, or carved stone blocks during the lengthy construction process. These spaces might have been sealed once the work was completed, leaving behind the voids detected by modern surveys. This theory gains support from similar practices documented at other ancient Egyptian construction sites, where workers often created temporary storage areas within monuments or nearby structures. The rectangular shape of the main chamber beneath the paws could reflect practical considerations for storing construction materials or completed architectural elements that were later incorporated into the monument's final design. A second theory proposes that the chambers served a religious or ceremonial function related to the Sphinx's role as a guardian figure. Ancient Egyptian religious practices often involved the creation of hidden sanctuaries within temples and monuments, spaces where sacred rituals could be performed away from public view. The chambers within the Sphinx might have served as secret chapels, where priests conducted ceremonies related to the monument's protective function or its association with solar deities. This interpretation is supported by textual evidence describing similar hidden chambers in other Egyptian religious complexes, where priests maintained secret spaces for storing sacred objects, conducting initiation rituals, or preserving religious texts. The location of the main chamber beneath the Sphinx's paws might reflect symbolic associations with the monument's role as a guardian that watches over the sacred ground of the necropolis. More speculative theories suggest that the chambers contain records or artifacts from Egypt's distant past, possibly including the legendary Hall of Records described in various esoteric traditions. According to these interpretations, ancient Egyptian priests foresaw the decline of their civilization and created hidden repositories where they preserved their most important knowledge for future generations. The Sphinx, as one of Egypt's most enduring monuments, would have been an ideal location for such a repository. Proponents of this theory point to various ancient texts that describe hidden libraries or treasure chambers associated with the Giza complex. They argue that the chambers might contain papyrus scrolls, carved tablets, or other records that could revolutionize our understanding of ancient Egyptian history, science, and religion. The careful sealing of these spaces would reflect the priest's desire to protect this knowledge until a future age worthy of receiving it. A fourth theory focuses on the possibility that the chambers are connected to the water management systems that may have operated at Giza in ancient times. Some researchers have proposed that the Sphinx was originally designed to interact with natural or artificial water features, possibly including underground springs or channels that brought Nile water to the plateau. The detected chambers might represent part of this hydraulic system, serving as reservoirs, settling tanks, or channels for controlling water flow. This theory gains credibility from geological evidence, suggesting that the Giza Plateau experienced different climatic conditions in the distant past, with higher groundwater levels and more abundant precipitation. The chambers might have been designed to collect and manage water for both practical and ceremonial purposes, supporting the large population of workers and priests who maintained the necropolis. Perhaps the most intriguing theory suggests that the chambers are much older than the Sphinx itself, representing remnants of an earlier civilization that occupied the Giza Plateau before the dynastic Egyptians. According to this interpretation, the Sphinx was carved around pre-existing underground structures, incorporating ancient chambers into its design while concealing their original purpose. This would explain both the chambers' presence and the apparent reluctance of Egyptian authorities to investigate them thoroughly. Modern scientific investigations have continued to refine our understanding of the Sphinx's internal structure, while developing new techniques for non-invasive archaeological exploration. Advanced ground-penetrating radar systems have provided increasingly detailed images of the detected voids, while computer modeling has helped researchers estimate the size and configuration of the hidden spaces. Three-dimensional seismic surveys have created detailed maps of subsurface features around the Sphinx, revealing the relationship between the monument and surrounding geological formations. These studies have confirmed that some of the detected anomalies represent artificial voids rather than natural limestone cavities, supporting theories that the chambers were deliberately created by ancient builders. Electromagnetic surveys using different frequencies have provided complementary data about the monument's internal structure, helping researchers distinguish between solid stone, loose fill material, and empty spaces. The combination of multiple survey techniques has created a comprehensive picture of the Sphinx's subsurface features, while minimizing uncertainty about the nature of detected anomalies. Computer analysis of survey data has enabled researchers to create virtual models of the hidden chambers, estimating their dimensions and speculating about their possible contents. These models suggest that the largest chamber beneath the pause could accommodate several people and might contain substantial amounts of stored material, whether ancient artifacts or construction debris. Recent developments in remote sensing technology have opened new possibilities for investigating the chambers without physical excavation. Advanced muon tomography, similar to the techniques used to study the internal structure of pyramids, could potentially provide detailed images of chamber contents without requiring direct access. However, such investigations would still require permission from Egyptian authorities and cooperation from international research institutions. Modern challenges continue to complicate efforts to investigate the Sphinx's hidden chambers, creating a complex web of scientific, political, and preservation concerns that have prevented definitive exploration of these mysterious spaces. The Egyptian government's reluctance to authorize invasive excavation reflects legitimate concerns about protecting one of the world's most important archaeological monuments from potential damage. Conservation specialists worry that drilling or excavating into the Sphinx could destabilize the already fragile limestone structure, which has suffered from millennia of weathering, pollution, and structural stress. The monument has undergone numerous restoration projects throughout its history, and any new intervention must be carefully planned to avoid compromising previous conservation work. or causing additional damage. Political considerations also influence decisions about investigating the chambers, as Egyptian authorities balance scientific curiosity against concerns about tourism, national sovereignty, and control over archaeological discoveries. The Sphinx serves as a powerful symbol of Egyptian heritage, and any major discoveries within its structure would have significant cultural and political implications that extend far beyond academic archaeology. The Sphinx serves as a powerful symbol of Egyptian heritage, and any major discoveries within its structure would have significant cultural and political implications that extend far beyond academic archaeology. International cooperation presents additional challenges, as different research teams and institutions compete for access to study the monument while navigating complex diplomatic and bureaucratic requirements. The high-profile nature of any discoveries at the Sphinx ensures intense media attention that can complicate scientific investigation and create pressure for premature announcements or sensationalized interpretations. Technological limitations continue to restrict the amount of information that can be gathered about the chambers without direct access. While non-invasive survey techniques have confirmed the presence of voids, they cannot definitively determine the contents, age, or purpose of these spaces. The tantalizing mystery of what lies within the chambers remains just beyond the reach of current technology. Ethical considerations surround the investigation of potentially sacred spaces within monuments that continue to hold religious significance for some communities. The Sphinx remains an important symbol in various spiritual traditions, and any excavation must consider the impact on people who regard the monument as a sacred site that should remain undisturbed. Standing once again before the Great Sphinx, as the desert wind carries sand across its weathered features, you cannot help but reflect on the profound mystery concealed beneath its limestone skin. Somewhere within this ancient guardian lie chambers that have remained sealed since before the rise of classical civilization, spaces that might contain answers to questions we have not yet learned to ask. The monument's eternal gaze toward the eastern horizon seems to mock our modern impatience with mystery, reminding us that some secrets require more than sophisticated technology to unlock. Perhaps the hidden chambers will remain concealed until humanity develops not just better tools for investigation, but greater wisdom about when and how to disturb the legacy of the past. In an age when satellite imagery can map every square meter of Earth's surface, and deep space telescopes can peer billions of years into the past, the Sphinx's hidden chambers represent one of the last great mysteries hiding in plain sight. They challenge our assumptions about ancient capabilities, test our commitment to preserving archaeological heritage, and remind us that even in our interconnected world, some secrets are worth keeping. The chambers wait in darkness, as they have for millennia, their contents known only to the limestone guardian that protects them. Whether they hold prosaic construction debris or revolutionary archaeological treasures, they embody the enduring power of mystery to capture human imagination and drive our eternal quest to understand the achievements of our ancestors. What do you believe lies hidden within the chambers beneath the Sphinx? Share your theories about this ancient mystery in the comments below, and subscribe for more investigations into the secrets that continue to challenge our understanding of the ancient world. The Pharaoh's Stolen Heart. Imagine carefully unwrapping the ancient linen bandages of Egypt's most powerful pharaoh, your hands trembling as you reveal the preserved features of Ramesses II, the ruler who commanded an empire stretching from Nubia to the Euphrates River. The face that emerges from 3 millennia of darkness still bears the regal bearing of absolute authority, while the carefully preserved body speaks of meticulous preparation for eternal life among the gods. Yet, as your examination continues, you discover something that challenges everything you understand about Egyptian burial practices. Where the heart should rest, protected by sacred amulets and wrapped in layers of blessed linen, there is only an empty cavity. The organ that ancient Egyptians believed to be the seat of intelligence, emotion, and moral judgment has been deliberately removed and never replaced. Unlike other pharaohs whose hearts were carefully preserved or substituted with protective scarab amulets, Ramesses the Great was sent into eternity without the very organ that would allow his soul to speak in its defense before the gods of the underworld. This is not an oversight or accident of mummification. This is something far more sinister: the deliberate condemnation of Egypt's greatest pharaoh to eternal silence in the afterlife. You are confronting a mystery that strikes at the heart of ancient Egyptian religious beliefs and raises profound questions about palace intrigue, religious politics, and the terrible price that even divine kings might pay for their earthly actions. To comprehend the magnitude of this discovery, we must first understand the sacred world of Egyptian death and the crucial role that the heart played in determining eternal fate. For over 3,000 years, the civilization along the Nile had developed the most sophisticated understanding of death and afterlife of any ancient culture. Death was not an ending, but a transformation, a journey through the dangerous landscape of the underworld toward eventual resurrection and eternal life among the gods. Central to this journey was the weighing of the heart ceremony, the most critical moment in the Egyptian afterlife process. According to the Book of the Dead and countless tomb paintings that depict this scene, the deceased would stand before Osiris, god of the underworld, while the god Anubis weighed their heart against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. If the heart proved lighter than the feather, indicating a life lived in accordance with divine law, the soul would be granted eternal life. If the heart was heavy with sin, it would be devoured by Ammit, the crocodile-headed monster, condemning the soul to complete annihilation. The heart itself was considered the most important organ in the human body, far more significant than the brain, which the Egyptians regarded as merely the source of mucus. The heart was believed to be the center of thought, emotion, memory, and moral consciousness. It was the organ that would testify on behalf of the deceased, speaking their words of justification before the divine tribunal. Without a heart, the soul would be rendered mute, unable to defend itself against accusations or claim its rightful place in the afterlife. Egyptian mummification practices reflected this crucial importance of the heart. While other organs were removed during the mummification process and placed in canopic jars under the protection of specific deities, the heart was traditionally left in place, carefully wrapped and protected by powerful amulets. In cases where the heart was accidentally damaged during mummification, it would be replaced by a heart scarab, a carved stone beetle inscribed with spells from the Book of the Dead that would serve the same function as the original organ. Ramesses II, known to posterity as Ramesses the Great, was arguably the most powerful and successful pharaoh in Egyptian history. Born around 1293 years before the Common Era, he ruled Egypt for 66 years during the height of the New Kingdom period, transforming the country into the dominant force in the ancient world. His military campaigns extended Egyptian influence deep into the Levant, while his building projects created some of the most magnificent monuments ever erected, including the Great Temple at Abu Simbel and numerous additions to the temple complex at Karnak. During his long reign, Ramesses commanded absolute authority over millions of subjects, controlled vast wealth from tribute and trade, and was worshipped as a living god. He fathered over 100 children with numerous wives and concubines, established a new capital city in the Nile Delta, and negotiated the world's first known peace treaty with the Hittite Empire. By any measure, he was one of history's most successful rulers, a pharaoh whose achievements surpassed those of almost every other ancient king. Yet despite his earthly success, someone made the extraordinary decision to condemn this mighty pharaoh to spiritual failure in the afterlife. The removal of his heart represents not just a violation of proper mummification practices, but a deliberate act of religious sabotage that would have been considered the ultimate punishment in ancient Egyptian society. The discovery of Ramesses' missing heart occurred during the modern scientific examination of royal mummies that began in the late 19th century. When French archaeologist Gaston Maspero first unwrapped the pharaoh's mummy in 1886, the focus was primarily on identification and documentation rather than detailed anatomical study. It was not until the 20th century, when more sophisticated examination techniques became available, that researchers began to notice the unusual characteristics of Ramesses' mummification. The breakthrough came during detailed CT scans and X-ray examinations conducted in the 1970s and 80s, when medical imaging revealed the absence of the heart and the unusual condition of the chest cavity. Unlike other royal mummies where the heart's presence or absence could be attributed to preservation issues or ancient damage, the condition of Ramesses' mummy clearly indicated deliberate removal without replacement. Further investigation revealed additional anomalies in the mummification process that suggested the work was either rushed or performed by embalmers who were unfamiliar with proper royal burial procedures. The positioning of certain organs, the quality of preservation, and the arrangement of protective amulets all showed deviations from the standard practices used for other pharaohs of the New Kingdom period. Perhaps most telling was the discovery that while the heart had been removed, other organs that should have been extracted and placed in canopic jars remained in the body. This selective removal suggested that the absence of the heart was intentional rather than the result of standard mummification procedures, raising questions about who had ordered this deviation and why. Comparison with other royal mummies from the same period revealed that Ramesses' mummification was unique in its treatment of the heart. Every other pharaoh examined, including his father Seti I and his son Merneptah, had either retained their hearts or received appropriate substitutes. The pattern strongly suggested that Ramesses' heart removal was a deliberate exception rather than a change in mummification practices. But who would dare to condemn a pharaoh to eternal punishment? And what could motivate such an extreme act of religious sabotage? The theories proposed by Egyptologists, historians, and medical researchers reveal a complex web of palace intrigue, religious politics, and family dysfunction that may have surrounded the great pharaoh's death and burial. The first theory focuses on the possibility of political conspiracy within the royal court. Ramesses' long reign and numerous offspring created a complex succession situation, with multiple potential heirs competing for power. Some researchers suggest that one of his sons or court officials, perhaps motivated by years of resentment or ambition, arranged for the heart's removal as an act of posthumous revenge. This theory gains credibility from known instances of palace intrigue during the later New Kingdom period, when succession disputes often led to violence and betrayal. According to this interpretation, the perpetrator might have been someone with enough authority to influence the mummification process, but who lacked the power to challenge Ramesses directly during his lifetime. The removal of the heart would represent the ultimate revenge, condemning the pharaoh to spiritual failure while appearing to honor him with proper burial. The subtlety of the sabotage would allow the guilty party to maintain their position while ensuring that their enemy faced eternal punishment. A second theory suggests that the heart removal was ordered by the high priests of certain temples as punishment for religious policies that threatened their power and wealth. Ramesses, despite his devotion to the gods, was also a pragmatic ruler who sometimes redirected temple resources to support his military campaigns and building projects. Some priestly factions might have viewed this as sacrilege, worthy of the ultimate spiritual punishment. This theory is supported by evidence of tension between pharaohs and powerful priesthoods during the New Kingdom period, when temple establishments controlled enormous wealth and wielded significant political influence. The deliberate removal of the heart would represent a form of religious justice carried out by those who believed that Ramesses had violated his sacred duties as pharaoh. More dramatic theories propose that the heart removal was connected to specific crimes or violations of divine law that Ramesses committed during his reign. Some researchers point to his treatment of captured enemies, his appropriation of monuments built by previous pharaohs, or his claimed divine status as potential sources of cosmic imbalance that required spiritual punishment. According to this interpretation, the missing heart represents divine justice administered by those who understood the true moral weight of the pharaoh's actions. A fourth theory focuses on the possibility that Ramesses' heart was removed for medical rather than religious reasons. Some medical historians suggest that the pharaoh might have died from a heart condition that left the organ in such poor condition that embalmers felt it was unsuitable for preservation. In this scenario, the failure to provide a substitute heart scarab might have resulted from political turmoil surrounding the succession, or from embalmers who were inexperienced with proper royal burial procedures. This medical theory gains some support from evidence suggesting that Ramesses suffered from various health problems in his later years, including arthritis, dental issues, and possible cardiovascular disease. If his heart was severely damaged by disease, embalmers might have made the difficult decision to remove it rather than risk including a deteriorated organ in the burial. Perhaps the most intriguing theory suggests that the heart removal was part of a broader pattern of deliberate historical revisionism carried out after Ramesses' death. Some researchers propose that later pharaohs or court officials systematically altered records and burial practices to diminish Ramesses' legacy, possibly because his long reign and numerous achievements overshadowed their own accomplishments. The missing heart would represent the ultimate form of this historical sabotage, ensuring that even in death, the great pharaoh would face diminished status. Modern scientific investigations have brought advanced medical and forensic techniques to bear on the mystery of Ramesses' missing heart. High-resolution CT scans have provided detailed images of the chest cavity, revealing the precise nature of the heart's removal and the condition of surrounding tissues. These studies have confirmed that the heart was deliberately extracted and have provided clues about the timing and method of its removal. Chemical analysis of residual materials within the chest cavity has revealed traces of substances used in the mummification process, helping researchers understand the techniques employed by the embalmers. The presence of certain resins and salts suggests that the heart removal occurred during the initial mummification rather than as a later violation of the burial. DNA analysis has attempted to identify family relationships between Ramesses and other royal mummies, providing context for understanding potential succession disputes that might have motivated the heart's removal. While some results remain inconclusive due to the degraded condition of ancient DNA, the studies have confirmed certain family connections and ruled out others. Advanced imaging techniques have also been used to search for evidence of the missing heart, or substitute amulets that might have been overlooked in earlier examinations. These investigations have confirmed that no heart scarab or other replacement was included in the mummification, making Ramesses' case unique among royal burials of the period. Comparative studies of mummification techniques across different periods have helped researchers understand how Ramesses' burial differed from standard practices and what this might reveal about the circumstances surrounding his death and preparation for the afterlife. Modern challenges continue to complicate efforts to understand the circumstances surrounding Ramesses' missing heart. The fragile condition of the mummy limits the types of analysis that can be performed without risking damage to irreplaceable archaeological material. Each new examination must be carefully planned to maximize information while minimizing harm to the 3,000-year-old remains. Political and cultural sensitivities surrounding the study of royal mummies have created additional obstacles to research. Egyptian authorities and various cultural groups have expressed concerns about the appropriateness of subjecting revered historical figures to invasive scientific examination, leading to restrictions on certain types of analysis. The international nature of royal mummy collections, with specimens housed in museums around the world, has complicated efforts to conduct comprehensive comparative studies. Diplomatic and legal issues surrounding the ownership and control of these artifacts have limited collaborative research opportunities. Conservation challenges affect not only Ramesses' mummy, but also related artifacts and documents that might provide clues about the circumstances of his burial. Environmental factors, including climate change and pollution, threaten the preservation of papyrus documents and other organic materials that could contain relevant information. The commercialization of ancient Egyptian history and the popular fascination with curses and mysteries have created additional challenges for serious scholarly investigation. Sensationalized media coverage and pseudoscientific theories have sometimes obscured legitimate research efforts and made it difficult to distinguish between credible evidence and speculation. Standing before the preserved remains of Ramesses the Great, you cannot help but reflect on the profound injustice represented by his missing heart. Here lies a pharaoh who commanded vast armies, built magnificent monuments, and ruled the ancient world's greatest empire, yet who was denied the basic requirement for success in the afterlife that was granted to common citizens and slaves alike. The empty cavity where his heart should rest serves as a stark reminder that even absolute power provides no protection against betrayal, revenge, or the complex web of relationships that surround every throne. Someone close enough to influence his burial arrangements harbored resentment or ambition strong enough to condemn a god-king to eternal silence, demonstrating that the most dangerous enemies often wear the faces of friends and family. Perhaps the greatest tragedy is not just the theft of Ramesses' heart, but the loss of whatever truth that organ might have spoken in the halls of divine judgment. According to Egyptian belief, the heart would have testified about the pharaoh's true character, revealing both his achievements and his failures with perfect honesty. Without that testimony, we are left to judge Ramesses based only on the monuments and records that survive, unable to hear the voice of his own conscience speaking across the millennia. The missing heart transforms Ramesses from a triumphant king into a tragic figure, a reminder that human ambition and jealousy can reach even beyond death to inflict suffering on those who seemed untouchable in life. His silent mummy bears witness to the eternal struggle between public success and private loyalty, between the appearance of divine authority and the reality of human vulnerability. What do you believe happened to the heart of Ramesses the Great? Who would dare condemn Egypt's mightiest pharaoh to eternal silence? And what crime could justify such spiritual punishment? Share your theories about this ancient mystery in the comments below, and subscribe for more investigations into the secrets that lie hidden within the tombs of the pharaohs. The ships in the desert. Imagine excavating in the sun-scorched sands of the Egyptian desert when your shovel strikes something unexpected. Not pottery or stone, but the weathered cedar planks of a ship's hull. As you carefully brush away millennia of accumulated sand, the unmistakable outline of a vessel emerges, complete with masts, rigging, and carefully stowed supplies. Your hands trace the smooth curves of a prow designed to cut through water, yet you stand in an ocean of sand, miles from the nearest river or canal, surrounded by nothing but endless desert stretching to the horizon. These are not the remains of some ancient flood or long-dried waterway. These ships were deliberately buried here, carefully positioned in sand pits and covered with earth by people who intended them to remain hidden for eternity. The vessels appear ready to sail, their hulls intact, and their gear stowed as if waiting for a crew that will never come. Yet they rest in places where no water has flowed for thousands of years, monuments to a purpose that defies conventional understanding. You are confronting one of archaeology's most perplexing mysteries, the desert boats of ancient Egypt. Found at sites across the country, from the sacred city of Abydos to remote locations near the pyramids, these perfectly preserved vessels challenge everything we think we know about ancient Egyptian burial practices, religious beliefs, and the relationship between the living and the dead. Why would a civilization dependent on the Nile for life itself bury seaworthy ships in the desert sands? To understand this mystery, we must first explore the profound relationship between ancient Egyptians and their boats, connections that extended far beyond mere transportation into the realm of cosmic significance and divine purpose. For a civilization that owed its existence to the Nile River, boats were not simply vessels, but sacred instruments that connected the earthly realm with the divine cosmos above. Egyptian mythology placed boats at the center of creation itself. The sun god Ra traveled across the sky in his solar barque, carrying light and life to the world below, while at night he journeyed through the underworld in a different vessel, battling the forces of chaos to ensure the sun's return each dawn. The god Khnum was said to have fashioned humans on his potter's wheel, while floating in a cosmic boat, while Isis and Nephthys searched for the scattered pieces of Osiris in divine vessels that could navigate both earthly waters and the streams of eternity. This celestial significance extended to earthly boats, which were considered essential for the journey into the afterlife. Egyptian funerary texts describe the deceased traveling in boats to reach the field of reeds, the paradise where the righteous dead would spend eternity. The pharaoh's boat was particularly important, as the divine king needed to join Ra in his daily journey across the heavens, serving as an eternal guardian of cosmic order. Archaeological evidence reveals that boat burials were common throughout Egyptian history, with vessels found in tombs ranging from simple wooden models to full-size ships buried alongside pharaohs and nobles. The most famous examples include the boats discovered near the Great Pyramid of Khufu, magnificent cedar vessels over 40 meters long that were carefully dismantled and buried in sealed pits beside the pyramid. These boats, when reconstructed, proved to be masterpieces of ancient shipbuilding, capable of navigating both the Nile and the treacherous waters of the afterlife. Yet the discovery of boats in the desert, far from any tomb or obvious burial context, suggests purposes that extend beyond traditional funerary practices. These vessels seem to have been placed with deliberate intention in locations chosen for reasons that remain completely mysterious to modern archaeology. The story of these desert discoveries begins with the systematic exploration of Egypt's archaeological sites during the 19th and 20th centuries. As archaeologists expanded their searches beyond the obvious locations of pyramids and temples, they began to encounter unexpected finds in the most unlikely places. Boats buried in desert sands with no apparent connection to tombs, temples, or water sources. The most significant discoveries occurred at Abydos, the sacred city dedicated to Osiris, god of the underworld. In 1914, archaeologists working in the area began uncovering what would eventually be recognized as the largest collection of ancient boats ever found in a single location. Over the following decades, excavations revealed 14 vessels dating to the early dynastic period, approximately 5,000 years ago, all carefully buried in boat-shaped pits carved into the desert floor. These Abydos boats were extraordinary by any measure. Ranging from 18 to 20 meters in length, they were constructed from imported cedar planks, held together with leather rope and wooden pegs, representing sophisticated shipbuilding techniques that demonstrated remarkable skill and knowledge. The vessels were complete and functional, not symbolic models or ritual objects, but actual boats capable of carrying substantial loads across water. What made the discovery even more mysterious was the careful way the boats had been buried. Each vessel was placed in its own pit, surrounded by hundreds of smaller objects including pottery, tools, and what appeared to be supplies for a journey. The boats were oriented east to west, aligned with the path of the sun across the sky, and covered with mud brick structures that suggested they were intended to remain hidden forever. Further investigations revealed additional boat burials at other desert sites throughout Egypt. Near the Giza pyramids, archaeologists discovered boat pits containing vessels that had been deliberately dismantled and carefully arranged for burial. At Dashur, boats were found buried near the pyramids of the Middle Kingdom pharaohs, while at Lisht, excavations uncovered boat remains in desert areas, far from any obvious water source. Each discovery added to the mystery, while providing no clear answers about the purpose of these desert burials. The boats were clearly seaworthy, built with the same techniques used for vessels that actually sailed the Nile, yet they had been deliberately removed from any context where they could serve their apparent function as transportation. But what could motivate ancient Egyptians to sacrifice valuable, functional boats to the desert sands? The theories proposed by archaeologists, historians, and religious scholars reveal a complex web of spiritual beliefs, practical considerations, and cosmic purposes that may have driven these mysterious burials. The most widely accepted theory suggests that the desert boats were intended for the pharaoh's journey through the afterlife, buried at sacred sites to ensure the king's access to divine transportation when needed. According to this interpretation, the boats represent a form of spiritual infrastructure, placed strategically throughout the sacred landscape to support the pharaoh's eternal duties as a divine ruler. This theory gains support from Egyptian religious texts that describe multiple boats used by the sun god for different purposes and times of day. Just as Ra required different vessels for his journey through the sky and the underworld, the pharaoh might have needed boats positioned at specific locations to fulfill his cosmic responsibilities. The desert burials would ensure that these vessels remain pure and ready for divine service, protected from the pollution of earthly use. A second theory focuses on the boats as offerings to the gods, particularly to Osiris and other deities associated with the afterlife. Ancient Egyptian religious practices included elaborate offerings of valuable objects to ensure divine favor and protection. Burying functional boats in the desert might represent the ultimate sacrifice, demonstrating devotion so complete that valuable resources were permanently removed from human use and dedicated to the gods. This interpretation is supported by the locations of many boat burials, which occur at sites sacred to specific deities or associated with particular religious festivals. The Abydos boats, for example, were found near the temple complex dedicated to Osiris, suggesting they might have been offerings intended to support the god's role as ruler of the underworld and judge of the dead. More speculative theories propose that the boats were buried in response to specific historical events or religious crises that required extraordinary spiritual intervention. Some researchers suggest that the boat burials might have been desperate attempts to appease angry gods during periods of political instability, natural disasters, or foreign invasion. The sacrifice of valuable vessels would demonstrate the community's commitment to restoring divine favor and cosmic order. A fourth theory suggests that the desert boats were part of elaborate magical rituals designed to influence natural forces or political events. Ancient Egyptian magic often involved sympathetic actions that were believed to create corresponding effects in the spiritual realm. Burying boats in the desert might have been intended to bring rain, ensure successful military campaigns, or protect Egypt from invasion by creating spiritual barriers in the landscape. Perhaps the most intriguing theory proposes that the boats were buried as part of a comprehensive plan for Egypt's spiritual defense, creating a network of sacred vessels that could be activated in times of cosmic crisis. According to this interpretation, the pharaohs and their priests were constructing a kind of spiritual infrastructure, positioning boats at strategic locations throughout the kingdom to ensure that divine protection would be available wherever it was needed. Modern scientific investigations have brought advanced techniques to bear on understanding these mysterious vessels and the circumstances of their burial. Radiocarbon dating has established precise chronologies for the boat burials, revealing that they occurred across different periods of Egyptian history, rather than representing a single cultural practice or historical event. Wood analysis has identified the species used in boat construction and has traced the origins of the timber to specific regions, providing insights into ancient trade networks and resource management. The use of imported cedar from Lebanon for boats that would never touch water demonstrates the enormous value placed on these vessels and suggests that their burial represented a significant economic sacrifice. Soil analysis of the burial pits has revealed information about the environmental conditions at the time of burial and has helped researchers understand the preservation processes that kept the boats intact for millennia. Chemical analysis of objects found with the boats has provided clues about their intended purposes and the rituals that may have accompanied their burial. Ground-penetrating radar and other remote sensing techniques have been used to search for additional boat burials that may remain undiscovered. These surveys have revealed subsurface anomalies at various sites that suggest the presence of additional vessels, indicating that the known discoveries may represent only a fraction of the total number of boats buried in Egypt's deserts. Three-dimensional modeling and virtual reconstruction have allowed researchers to study the boat's construction techniques and design principles in detail. These analyses have revealed sophisticated understanding of shipbuilding principles and have demonstrated that the vessels were designed for specific purposes that may have included both earthly navigation and spiritual functions. Modern challenges continue to complicate efforts to understand and preserve these remarkable archaeological discoveries. The remote locations of many boat burials make them vulnerable to looting and environmental damage, while the fragile nature of ancient wood requires careful conservation techniques to prevent deterioration. Climate change poses additional threats to the preservation of desert archaeological sites, as changing precipitation patterns and extreme weather events can damage exposed remains and alter the soil chemistry that has preserved organic materials for millennia. Rising groundwater levels in some areas threaten to saturate previously dry sites, potentially destroying wood and other organic artifacts. Political instability and security concerns in Egypt have limited access to some archaeological sites, preventing comprehensive study of known boat burials and hampering efforts to discover new ones. International cooperation is essential for proper archaeological investigation, but diplomatic tensions and bureaucratic restrictions sometimes complicate research efforts. The high value of ancient boats on the illegal antiquities market creates additional conservation challenges, as remote burial sites are particularly vulnerable to looters who may destroy archaeological context while removing valuable objects. Protecting these sites requires constant vigilance and significant resources that are not always available. Tourism and development pressures also threaten archaeological sites, as expanding cities and infrastructure projects encroach on areas that may contain undiscovered boat burials. Balancing the needs of modern development with archaeological preservation requires careful planning and significant investment in site protection. Standing in the desert where these mysterious vessels rest beneath the sand, you cannot help but reflect on the profound faith and commitment that drove ancient Egyptians to sacrifice valuable resources to purposes we can barely comprehend. These boats, designed to carry precious cargo across life-giving waters, were instead consigned to endless drought, their hulls filled with sand rather than the river water that was Egypt's lifeblood. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not why the boats were buried, but what their builders believed would happen when they were needed. Did they expect the desert to bloom with supernatural waters? Did they envision cosmic voyages that would require earthly vessels? Or were they creating sacred spaces where the boundaries between earth and heaven, life and death, water and sand could be transcended through acts of supreme devotion? The ships in the desert remind us that ancient peoples operated according to spiritual logic that often defies modern understanding. They were willing to sacrifice enormous resources for purposes that existed primarily in the realm of faith, creating monuments to beliefs so powerful that practical considerations became irrelevant. These buried boats stand as testimony to the human capacity for transcendent purpose, even when that purpose leads to actions that seem incomprehensible to later generations. In the end, the desert boats may represent the ultimate expression of ancient Egyptian spirituality, the willingness to commit precious resources to divine purposes without guarantee of earthly return. They embody a faith so complete that it could transform practical vessels into sacred offerings, turning seaworthy ships into eternal monuments to the mystery of human devotion. What do you believe motivated the ancient Egyptians to bury perfectly functional boats in the desert sands? Share your theories about these mysterious vessels in the comments below, and subscribe for more explorations of the ancient mysteries that continue to challenge our understanding of the past. The city that time forgot. Imagine walking through the ruins of an ancient city where time seems to have stopped in an instant. Your feet crunch on sand-covered streets as you pass through doorways that still frame empty rooms, their walls bearing the scorch marks of cooking fires that burned over 3,400 years ago. In one house, you discover bread loaves still sitting in clay ovens, their surfaces hardened to stone, but their shapes perfectly preserved. Scattered across workshop floors lie beads of gold and precious stones, abandoned as if their owners had simply vanished mid-task. This is not the gradual decay of a city slowly emptied by plague or economic decline. This is something far more mysterious, a thriving urban center that appears to have been abandoned in a single moment, its inhabitants fleeing so suddenly that they left behind precious possessions, unfinished meals, and the intimate details of daily life. Wine jars still bear hieroglyphic dates, marking them as products of specific harvests during the reign of Amenhotep III, while pottery workshops contain vessels that were never fired, their clay still soft when the sand began to cover them. You are standing in the recently discovered Lost Golden City near Luxor, a settlement that archaeologists have dubbed the most significant find in Egypt since the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb. This perfectly preserved urban snapshot challenges everything we thought we knew about ancient Egyptian society and raises profound questions about what could cause an entire community to abandon their homes so abruptly that they left behind a frozen moment in time. To understand the magnitude of this discovery, we must first explore the extraordinary period in which this city flourished. The settlement dates to the reign of Amenhotep III, who ruled Egypt from approximately 1391 to 1353 years before the Common Era, during what historians consider the absolute peak of ancient Egyptian civilization. This was the height of the 18th dynasty, when Egypt controlled an empire stretching from Nubia to the Euphrates River and commanded tribute from kingdoms across the known world. Amenhotep III, known to his subjects as the Sunday King, presided over an era of unprecedented wealth and cultural achievement. Gold flowed from mines in the southern territories, while tribute ships arrived regularly from vassal states bearing exotic goods, precious materials, and diplomatic gifts. The pharaoh's court attracted artists, craftsmen, and scholars from across the Mediterranean world, creating a cosmopolitan atmosphere that fostered innovation in art, architecture, and technology. This was also a time of remarkable urban development, when Egyptian cities grew beyond their traditional roles as religious and administrative centers to become thriving commercial and residential communities. The wealthy class that had emerged during Egypt's imperial expansion built elaborate homes filled with luxury goods, while skilled craftsmen established workshops that produced the finest jewelry, pottery, and decorative objects in the ancient world. The newly discovered city appears to have been one of these boom towns, a settlement that grew rapidly to serve the needs of the expanded royal court and the wealthy elite who surrounded it. Archaeological evidence suggests it was a major administrative and industrial center, with specialized workshops for pottery, jewelry making, textile production, and metalworking. The quality and quantity of artifacts found throughout the site indicate that this was a community of considerable prosperity, inhabited by people who could afford the finest goods available in the ancient world. Yet something happened during the final years of Amenhotep III's reign that caused this thriving community to vanish almost overnight, leaving behind a puzzle that has captivated archaeologists and historians since its discovery. The story of the lost Golden City's rediscovery reads like an adventure from the golden age of archaeology, combining cutting-edge technology with the timeless thrill of uncovering secrets buried beneath desert sands. The site was first identified in 2020 by renowned Egyptian archaeologist Dr. Zahi Hawass and his international team, who were initially searching for the mortuary temple of Tutankhamun near the Valley of the Kings. Using ground-penetrating radar and magnetic surveying techniques, the team detected unusual subsurface features that suggested the presence of substantial structures buried beneath centuries of accumulated sand and debris. When excavation began in earnest, what emerged was far more significant than anyone had anticipated. Not scattered ruins or isolated buildings, but an entire urban complex that had been naturally preserved by the dry desert climate. The first structures to emerge were residential buildings with walls still standing, over 3 meters high, their mud brick construction intact after more than 3 millennia. As excavation continued, the team uncovered street after street of houses, workshops, and administrative buildings, all arranged in a planned urban layout that spoke of sophisticated city planning and municipal organization. What made the discovery truly extraordinary was the incredible state of preservation. Unlike most ancient sites, which show evidence of gradual abandonment and systematic stripping of valuable materials, this city appeared to have been abandoned intact. Pottery vessels sat exactly where they had been placed. Tools lay scattered on workshop floors as if recently set down, and personal belongings remained in the positions where their owners had left them. The archaeological team found ovens with bread still inside, wine storage areas with jars bearing precise dates, and workshops containing partially completed luxury goods that would have been worth fortunes in the ancient world. In one area, they discovered what appeared to be a bakery, with large-scale bread production facilities, while another section revealed jewelry workshops, with thousands of beads and precious metal fragments scattered across the floors. Perhaps most remarkably, the team uncovered administrative buildings containing seal impressions and inscriptions that definitively dated the city to the reign of Amenhotep III, and confirmed that it continued to be occupied during the early years of his successor, Akhenaten. This timing makes the city's sudden abandonment even more mysterious, as it occurred during what should have been a period of continued prosperity and expansion. But what could have caused an entire thriving city to be abandoned so suddenly that its inhabitants left behind bread in ovens and precious jewelry on workshop floors? The theories proposed to explain this mystery reveal a complex web of political upheaval, natural disaster, and social transformation that may have converged to create the perfect conditions for mass exodus. The first and most compelling theory links the city's abandonment to the religious revolution of Akhenaten, the son and successor of Amenhotep III. When Akhenaten ascended to the throne, he implemented radical changes that transformed Egyptian society from top to bottom. His promotion of Aten worship and suppression of traditional gods created massive disruption in religious establishments, while his decision to build a new capital at Amarna drew resources and population away from existing urban centers. According to this theory, the residents of the Golden City may have been forced to abandon their homes to relocate to Akhenaten's new capital, or they may have fled voluntarily to escape the religious persecution that accompanied the pharaoh's reforms. The sudden nature of the abandonment would reflect the speed with which Akhenaten's changes were implemented, giving people little time to gather their possessions before leaving. A second theory focuses on the possibility of natural disaster, particularly flooding or seismic activity that may have made the city uninhabitable. The Nile River's behavior was crucial to Egyptian civilization, and any major change in flood patterns could devastate urban centers that depended on reliable water supplies and agricultural production. Geological evidence suggests that the late 18th dynasty period experienced significant climatic variations that may have affected river levels and rainfall patterns. More dramatic theories propose that the city was abandoned due to plague or epidemic disease that swept through the population. The speed of abandonment suggested by the archaeological evidence could indicate that residents fled in panic to escape contagion, leaving behind possessions that might have been considered contaminated. Ancient medical texts describe various epidemic diseases that affected Egypt during different periods, and the close living conditions in urban centers would have facilitated rapid disease transmission. A fourth theory suggests that the abandonment was connected to political upheaval and civil conflict during the transition from Amenhotep III to Akhenaten. Some historians propose that this period witnessed significant tension between traditional religious authorities and supporters of religious reform, possibly leading to violence that forced people to flee their homes. The wealth evident in the abandoned city might have made it a target for looting or requisition by competing factions. Perhaps the most intriguing theory proposes that the city's abandonment was part of a deliberate government policy, possibly related to administrative reorganization or resource reallocation. The Egyptian state had enormous power to relocate populations when necessary for major construction projects or agricultural development. The residents might have been ordered to relocate to support Akhenaten's new capital or other royal initiatives, with insufficient time allowed for orderly evacuation of personal possessions. Modern scientific investigations have brought sophisticated analytical techniques to bear on understanding the circumstances of the city's abandonment and the lives of its former inhabitants. Radiocarbon dating of organic materials has confirmed the chronology of occupation and abandonment, while chemical analysis of pottery and other artifacts has provided insights into trade relationships and daily life practices. Environmental archaeology has revealed information about the ancient climate and ecological conditions that existed when the city was inhabited. Pollen analysis and soil studies have provided evidence about agricultural practices and vegetation patterns, while analysis of animal remains has shown what livestock and wildlife were present in the area. Digital documentation using three-dimensional scanning and photogrammetry has created precise records of structures and artifacts in their original positions, preserving invaluable contextual information about how the city was organized and used. These techniques have allowed researchers to study spatial relationships and activity patterns that might reveal clues about the circumstances of abandonment. Chemical analysis of food remains and cooking facilities has provided insights into diet and food preparation practices, while study of textile fragments and organic materials has revealed information about clothing and household goods. The presence of imported materials has helped researchers understand trade networks and economic relationships that connected the city to other parts of the ancient world. Ground-penetrating radar and other remote sensing techniques continue to reveal additional structures that remain unexcavated, suggesting that the discovered portions of the city represent only a fraction of the total urban complex. These surveys indicate that the settlement was much larger than initially realized and may contain additional clues about its function and abandonment. Modern challenges surrounding the investigation and preservation of the lost Golden City reflect broader issues facing archaeological research in Egypt and around the world. The site's location in an area of intense archaeological activity creates competition for resources and attention, while the spectacular nature of the discoveries has attracted international media attention that sometimes complicates scientific investigation. Conservation of organic materials and fragile structures requires specialized expertise and significant funding, particularly in Egypt's challenging climate, where extreme temperatures and occasional flooding threaten archaeological remains. The site's rapid excavation has yielded enormous amounts of artifacts and data that require years of analysis and study to fully understand. Political and administrative considerations affect access to the site and the conduct of research, as Egyptian authorities balance international scientific collaboration with national control over cultural heritage. The high profile of the discovery has made it a symbol of Egyptian archaeological achievement, but also a focus of debates about cultural property and international cooperation. Tourism pressure poses additional challenges, as public interest in the discovery creates demand for site visits that must be balanced against conservation needs and ongoing research activities. The fragile nature of mud brick structures and organic artifacts makes them particularly vulnerable to damage from increased human activity. Climate change threatens the long-term preservation of the site, as changing weather patterns and extreme events could damage exposed structures and artifacts. Rising groundwater levels and increased precipitation pose particular risks to materials that have been preserved by dry conditions for over 3 millennia. Standing among the silent streets of this rediscovered city, you cannot help but feel the weight of the mystery that surrounds its abandonment. The empty doorways and scattered possessions speak of lives interrupted, of a community that simply vanished from history until archaeologists brought it back to light in the 21st century. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the discovery is how it captures a perfect moment in time, preserving not just buildings and artifacts, but the intimate details of daily life that are usually lost to history. The bread in the ovens and jewelry on the workshop floors transform abstract historical knowledge into vivid human reality, making the ancient past feel immediate and personal. The lost Golden City reminds us that even the most prosperous and seemingly secure communities are vulnerable to forces beyond their control. Whether driven away by religious revolution, natural disaster, political upheaval, or government decree, the residents of this thriving urban center discovered that wealth and comfort provide no protection against the unexpected turns of history. Their sudden departure created an unintentional gift to the future, a perfectly preserved snapshot of ancient Egyptian urban life that provides insights into how ordinary people lived, worked, and organized their communities during one of history's greatest civilizations. The city they were forced to abandon has become their monument, ensuring that their story will be remembered long after the circumstances that drove them away have been forgotten. What do you believe caused the sudden abandonment of this thriving ancient city? Share your theories about this remarkable archaeological discovery in the comments below, and subscribe for more explorations of the mysteries that continue to emerge from beneath Egypt's desert sands. The tomb that defies death. Imagine descending into an ancient tomb, your flashlight illuminating walls decorated with paintings so vivid they could have been completed yesterday. The deep blues of lapis lazuli and brilliant golds catch the light, as if the artists had just set down their brushes, while hieroglyphs seem to glow with the same intensity they possessed over 4,000 years ago. As you move deeper into the burial chamber, you encounter organic materials that should have crumbled to dust millennia ago. Wooden furniture with intricate carvings still sharp to the touch. Leather goods supple enough to bend, and textiles that retain their original colors and texture. At the chamber's heart lies the reason for this impossible preservation, a mummy so perfectly maintained that death seems like a temporary inconvenience rather than final destination. The face appears peaceful, almost sleeping, with skin that retains its natural color and features so well preserved that you can read the character and wisdom of a person who lived when the pyramids were already ancient. This is not the dried, brittle remains you expect from Egyptian mummification, but something that transcends the normal processes of decay and time. You are standing in one of archaeology's most perplexing mysteries, a tomb that seems to possess an inexplicable power to halt the march of time itself. while neighboring burial chambers show the expected signs of millennia-long deterioration. Certain Egyptian tombs maintain their contents in states of preservation that challenge our understanding of physics, chemistry, and the fundamental laws that govern organic decay. To understand this phenomenon, we must first explore the sophisticated science of Egyptian mummification and the environmental factors that normally determine preservation success. The ancient Egyptians developed their mortuary practices over thousands of years, perfecting techniques that could preserve human remains for eternity by defeating the natural processes of decomposition that claim all organic matter. The mummification process began with the removal of internal organs, which were the first to decay after death. The brain was extracted through the nose using specialized tools, while the liver, lungs, stomach, and intestines were removed through a small incision in the abdomen. These organs were individually treated with natron, a natural salt mixture, and stored in canopic jars under the protection of specific deities. Only the heart was typically left in place, as it was considered essential for judgment in the afterlife. The body was then packed and covered with natron for 70 days, during which time the salt absorbed all moisture from the tissues. This dehydration process was crucial, as bacteria and fungi that cause decomposition require water to survive. After the natron treatment, the body was cleaned, stuffed with aromatic materials like sawdust and spices, and wrapped in hundreds of yards of linen bandages soaked in resin. Protective amulets were placed between the layers of wrapping, while prayers and spells were recited to ensure the deceased's safe passage to the afterlife. Environmental conditions played an equally important role in long-term preservation. Egypt's dry climate, with minimal rainfall and low humidity, created ideal conditions for maintaining mummified remains. The limestone and sandstone chambers that housed many burials provided stable temperatures and protection from moisture infiltration. Underground tombs were particularly effective, as they remained insulated from surface temperature variations and weather events that could introduce humidity or flooding. Yet, despite the sophistication of Egyptian mummification techniques and the generally favorable preservation environment, the quality of preservation varies dramatically between different tombs and burial sites. Most mummies show expected signs of aging, with darkened skin, brittle bones, and deteriorated wrappings that reflect the passage of millennia. Organic materials like wood, leather, and textiles typically show varying degrees of degradation, while painted surfaces fade or flake away over time. However, certain tombs contain remains and artifacts that seem to exist outside the normal timeline of decay. These exceptional preservation cases cannot be explained simply by superior mummification techniques or more favorable environmental conditions, as neighboring tombs with similar characteristics show normal deterioration patterns. The mystery of these extraordinarily preserved burials has emerged gradually, as archaeologists have documented and compared preservation conditions across hundreds of Egyptian tomb discoveries. Early explorers in the 18th and 19th centuries often noted dramatic differences in preservation quality between similar tombs, but lacked the scientific tools to investigate the underlying causes. The most striking examples began to attract serious scientific attention during the 20th century, when archaeologists like Howard Carter and others documented cases where preservation quality seemed to exceed what should have been possible given known factors. Carter's discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 provided one of the most famous examples, as many organic materials in the burial were preserved far better than expected for a tomb that had experienced some water infiltration and humidity exposure over the centuries. More recent discoveries have provided even more dramatic examples of exceptional preservation. In some cases, archaeologists have found mummies with skin that remains flexible, hair that retains its original color and texture, and facial features so well preserved that the deceased appears to be merely sleeping. Wooden artifacts in these tombs often show no signs of insect damage, splitting, or warping, while textiles maintain their original strength and colors. Perhaps most remarkably, some painted surfaces in these exceptional tombs retain their original brilliance and detail, with colors that appear as vivid as if applied yesterday. The pigments show no signs of fading, flaking, or chemical alteration despite exposure to thousands of years of minor temperature and humidity variations. Even more puzzling, some organic materials like papyrus scrolls and leather goods remain supple and intact, showing no signs of the brittleness and cracking that normally affects such materials over extended periods. Scientific analysis has confirmed that these preservation anomalies cannot be explained by superior mummification techniques or obviously superior environmental conditions. Chemical analysis of the exceptional mummies reveals the same basic preservation methods used in other burials, while environmental monitoring shows tomb conditions that are similar to those in chambers with normal preservation levels. But what could account for these inexplicable preservation anomalies? The theories proposed by scientists, archaeologists, and alternative researchers reveal a fascinating spectrum of possible explanations, ranging from subtle environmental factors to more speculative possibilities involving unknown preservation mechanisms. The most scientifically conservative theory focuses on micro-environmental conditions that may not be immediately apparent, but could create significant preservation advantages. According to this interpretation, certain tombs may benefit from unique combinations of air circulation, humidity control, and chemical environments that create perfect preservation conditions. Variations in limestone composition, groundwater chemistry, or underground air currents might establish preservation microclimates that are difficult to detect with current monitoring techniques. This theory suggests that small differences in tomb construction, geological conditions, or placement could create dramatically different preservation outcomes even between nearby burial chambers. The exceptional tombs might represent cases where multiple favorable factors coincidentally combine to create preservation conditions that far exceed the norm. A second theory proposes that the ancient Egyptians possessed advanced preservation knowledge that they applied selectively to certain high-status burials. According to this interpretation, the most important individuals received superior mummification treatments, using techniques or materials that were closely guarded secrets of the priesthood. These advanced methods might have involved chemical compounds, preparation procedures, or environmental modifications that created exceptional preservation conditions. Supporters of this theory point to textual evidence suggesting that Egyptian priests maintained hierarchical levels of mummification knowledge, with the most sophisticated techniques reserved for pharaohs and other elite individuals. The exceptional preservation cases might represent the highest level of this secret knowledge applied to burials deemed worthy of extraordinary measures. More speculative theories suggest that certain tombs were deliberately constructed or modified to harness natural forces that enhance preservation. Some researchers propose that the ancient Egyptians understood electromagnetic fields, underground water systems, or geological energy patterns that could be manipulated to create preservation effects. According to this interpretation, the exceptional tombs were positioned or designed to take advantage of natural preservation forces that modern science has not yet identified or understood. A fourth theory focuses on the possibility that certain preservation materials or techniques created self-sustaining preservation environments within specific tombs. Some researchers suggest that particular combinations of resins, salts, or organic compounds might have established chemical equilibriums that actively resist decay processes. These preservation systems might function like natural preservatives that continue to protect organic materials over extended periods. Perhaps the most controversial theory proposes that the exceptional preservation cases involve unknown physical or chemical processes that operate according to principles not yet understood by modern science. According to this interpretation, Certain combinations of factors in these tombs create conditions that fundamentally alter the normal processes of organic decay, essentially stopping time within the burial chamber. Modern scientific investigations have brought sophisticated analytical techniques to bear on understanding these preservation anomalies. Environmental monitoring systems have been installed in exceptional tombs to track temperature, humidity, air circulation, and other factors that might contribute to superior preservation. These studies have revealed subtle differences in environmental conditions, but not variations dramatic enough to explain the preservation quality observed. Chemical analysis of exceptional mummies and artifacts has searched for evidence of superior preservation materials or techniques that might account for their condition. Mass spectrometry, X-ray fluorescence, and other analytical methods have identified the chemical compositions of mummification materials, revealing some variations but no obvious explanations for the dramatic preservation differences. Microbiological studies have investigated whether exceptional tombs contain different bacterial or fungal populations that might affect preservation outcomes. These studies have found that tombs with superior preservation often have lower levels of decay-causing microorganisms, but researchers have not identified the mechanisms that create these differences. Advanced imaging techniques, including CT scanning and electron microscopy, have provided detailed analysis of tissue preservation in exceptional mummies. These studies have revealed cellular and molecular level preservation that exceeds what should be possible given current understanding of organic decay processes. Radiocarbon dating and other chronological techniques have confirmed that the exceptionally preserved materials are indeed ancient, ruling out the possibility that they represent more recent intrusions or replacements. Carbon-14 analysis has established that organic materials in exceptional tombs are the same age as those in normally deteriorated burials. Modern challenges surrounding the investigation of exceptional preservation cases reflect broader issues in archaeological research and conservation science. The rarity and value of these exceptional specimens makes them difficult to study using invasive techniques, as any damage to irreplaceable materials must be carefully weighed against potential scientific benefits. Conservation concerns also affect research priorities, as exceptional preservation cases require special protection to maintain their extraordinary condition. Exposure to modern environmental conditions, even during scientific study, can potentially damage materials that have remained stable for millennia. This creates tension between the desire to understand preservation mechanisms and the need to protect exceptional specimens. The high-profile nature of exceptional preservation cases has attracted attention from both legitimate researchers and those promoting pseudoscientific theories. This creates challenges in maintaining scientific rigor while investigating phenomena that push the boundaries of current understanding. Climate change poses particular threats to exceptional preservation cases, as changing environmental conditions could disrupt the delicate equilibriums that maintain extraordinary preservation. Rising groundwater levels, temperature variations, and increased humidity from climate change could potentially damage materials that have remained stable for thousands of years. Access restrictions and political considerations affect research opportunities, as Egyptian authorities must balance scientific investigation with cultural preservation and tourism concerns. The exceptional nature of these preservation cases makes them valuable for both research and public exhibition, creating competing demands for access and use. Standing in the presence of these impossibly well-preserved remains, you cannot help but feel that you are witnessing something that transcends the normal boundaries between life and death, past and present. The mummy before you seems to bridge the gap between ancient and modern worlds, maintaining a connection to life that should have been severed millennia ago. Perhaps the most profound mystery is not how these exceptional preservation cases occur, but what they reveal about the relationship between consciousness, physical form, and the passage of time. The ancient Egyptians believed that proper preservation could enable the deceased to continue existing in some form, maintaining connections to the world of the living while journeying through the afterlife. These extraordinary preservation cases seem to validate some aspect of that ancient belief, suggesting that under certain circumstances, the boundary between life and death becomes more permeable than modern science typically acknowledges. The exceptional mummies appear to exist in a state that is neither fully alive nor completely dead, frozen in a moment that extends across millennia. The tombs that defy death remind us that despite our scientific advances, fundamental mysteries about life, consciousness, and the nature of existence remain unsolved. They challenge our assumptions about the inevitability of decay and the finality of death, suggesting that under certain circumstances, the normal rules that govern physical existence can be transcended. In the end, these exceptional preservation cases may represent more than just unusual archaeological phenomena. They may be windows into aspects of reality that we have yet to understand, preserved testimonies to the possibility that consciousness and physical form can interact in ways that extend far beyond current scientific knowledge. What do you believe explains these extraordinary preservation cases that seem to stop time itself? Share your thoughts about these mysterious tombs that challenge our understanding of life and death in the comments below. And subscribe for more explorations of the ancient mysteries that continue to defy scientific explanation.